Hey everyone, this is G23, and we are going to do the Hostile Takeover live stream. So, uh, normally Rich White would be doing his Unloaded Media live stream tonight at around this time, and he's not feeling good, so I decided that I would take over the time slot. So, we're going to kick this off.
In a world of uncertainty and turmoil, one man stands alone, along with his faithful sidekick. A man who entertains and educates the masses weekly, 70% of the time. Born out of the dusty plains of Washington State, now from the coastal forests of Oregon. The man, the myth, the man. G23.
So, there are some links out there if people want to join. I know I sent one to Kingpin and a few others. So earlier, Craig from Georgia Trapping and Fishing was doing a live stream, and we were kind of talking about like channels under 500 being able to possibly get their community tab, and also doing a custom URL. And so I jumped on his live stream and was kind of talking people through it a little bit, but I figured let's just do it live. Let's show you people how to do it. I know not everyone is going to be interested in this or anything, and so I just figure I'll try to help people, and it's always something that somebody can refer back to. So first in tonight, we had gun websites, followed by Grim90, 223 DMR, Jerry Parker, Krabby Turtle, Mr. Kingpin. So gun website said, did you slip Rich White a hot gummy so he would be forced to let you run his show tonight? There possibly could have been a hot gummy involved. CNT Designs is out there. Hunting and stuff with J&J. So we've got Boxcar Jerry out there. Echoes Reloading. Black Guns and Gardens. Keith Gregory, Viejo, and New York Outcast. So, again, thanks everyone. And I know Rob D has a link out there if he wants to jump in. So I'm going to share my screen. I can guarantee you I'm probably not the best person. I'm not super computer literate and everything, so we're going to stumble through this. So if you want, you're going to need to go through your two-step process, and so you can find links and everything in your YouTube studio. You can go into your monetization. And it shows grow your YouTube. You can see I'm at 455, but I got 3,270 public watch hours out of the 4,000 required. So if I would to hit 1,000, I'm almost there. I have no active community strikes, and my two-step verification is active. And I don't know if I can go in and... So, here in customization, you can set up your page how you want it, showing some channels you follow, your short videos, any playlists you create, uploaded videos. So then you're going to come over to basic information, and in here you can type all your information, anything about your channel. And down here you have channel URL and custom URL. So you can then create your own custom URL. So it's easier for people to find your channel. And trying to remember what I may not be able to go into. Let me oh. I may actually have to open up the studio. Trying to remember how to do this. It's been a while since I've actually been in there. So for some reason it's not wanting to open my right? I know, but I just thought it'd be funny to call it a hostile takeover. Yep. So for some reason it's not letting me open up my YouTube studio. Okay, so here is in my YouTube studio. Click on monetize. Go down here. Two-step. So I can't do the two-step because of I've already done it, so I can't show people, but there is a spot where you can go into your monetization area, and you'll have to go and do a two-step, which will then make it so that you're more apt to be able to yeah, so they've been talking about this new like YouTube handle and stuff like that, which they haven't completely released yet, so it's still kind of in beta, and so that will be something different. But if you haven't done the two-step process, when you open up your studio and you go to monetize, you'll have a spot in there that will require you to do a two-step process, so that you can, once you set up your two-step process, it helps protect your account from somebody being able to hack it, and two, you have to do that step if sometime down the road you make it and you get to the 1,000 subscribers and you have the 4,000 watch hours and you decide you want to monetize. The two-step process has to be in place. You can wait until you hit the 1,000 to do the two-step process. I'm not sure if you will get your community tab until you do the two-step process. So that's one of the requirements that you're going to have to do. So, if I would have thought about this, I could have logged into my wife's account and done her two-step process. But I did not do that. So, and I know G-Webs knows a lot more about this kind of stuff, but he's not available. Right now, I know YouTube is allowing channels that are under 100 subscribers or channel friends or tribe members, or however you want to refer to the people on your video, on your channel. So it used to be you had to have 100 before you could do a custom URL. And that's where I showed you can create your own custom URL. I recommend that everyone does that, because if somebody goes to post a link to your video, it's a lot easier for people to recognize, and I'll pull mine back up. It's a lot easier for people to associate when your custom URL kind of deals with your channel name and stuff. So I think it's a good thing to put that out there instead of just leaving it at the instead of leaving it at the stock that YouTube gives you. Being able to go and change it so it makes your channel easier to follow and find when you're being searched. It's a lot easier to bring people to your stuff. And my computer is running so friggin' slow. What's going on, Gene and Echo? So, yeah, I have a video that will be coming out probably around Wednesday that I think is is going to be a good video for a lot of people, a lot of ladies and stuff to see, and for guys. I mean, hey, the holidays are coming up. So when are you thinking you're going to get fiber optics there, Echo, in the next couple months? Oh, I hate it when YouTube changes my settings. There we go. What's going on, Rob?
Not much. Figured I'd give you a minute to get through all your window sharing and stuff before I jumped in here. So
Yeah, I know there was a couple people that were asking, like how to go about setting up the custom URL and doing like the YouTube two-step verification. So I'm trying to get a little bit and hopefully help them understand that. Probably fumbled through it a lot.
So I thought you tied Rich up.
Well, I don't know what happened. He was supposed to, he said he was feeling under the weather. What's going on, G-Webs?
First off, do I have to eat a hot thing like you two are going to, or do I just get to watch, right?
No hot foods involved tonight.
Some kind of hot gummy bubble gum or something?
Yeah, I think we need a sole winner from the hot food eating contest, and so I think New York Outcast and Baron SVG should do the bubble gum challenge, because then there's a sole winner, a sole winner. The first person who can chew the bubble gum and blow a bubble wins.
I think it should be something more like everybody comes up with something they don't think anybody else has tried before, and then everybody sources it somewhere, like Amazon or whatever, a store, right? Some aisle that you're maybe not go down normally, and then everybody just goes live and tries the different things, not necessarily to have to be the hottest or the spiciest or this or that, but just like, hey, have you ever tried this before? That might be interesting. Have a taste challenge thing and then you can see if people in the audience have tried it before, and then maybe rate which one was the most surprising or the most interesting.
So like everyone tries lingua, or everyone tries,
Man, I shouldn't even have realized. What the hell was I thinking? I just set that up, didn't I? I'm new to this whole situation. I didn't think.
Yep. Or we could go and try some barbacoa.
No, but seriously, like there's all kinds of weird stuff, right? That somebody's tried. Like whenever I first started eating peanuts and hot food, Thai food probably, was like, holy moly, I've lived my whole life without eating peanuts and hot food. What the hell was I thinking?
I don't know. I guess Floss was saying we do another one, but I think he said that he needed to get, or he wanted to get 50 likes on the last one, and if so, then we do the next. So
Oh, I guess I don't know if you were around on what would it have been, the overnight last time?
Yeah, last night's
They- There was only something like 30, and nobody's like interested in just doing it for no reason. Like it's not like all that interesting, and you guys had no reaction, so it's not like.
yeah,
I think they're both robots.
well, that and the time slot. I think, like,
Oh, I heard.
Go ahead.
You got a good point. In the middle of the night was a bad time slot. In the middle of the week and in the middle of the night.
oh, the show the last time I checked, it had I think over 100 and some odd views. So
But likes, right?
yeah, but likes just wasn't that many likes. So I think like 36 or something. So I've been keeping my eye on it because I'm kind of hoping it doesn't hit 50. But yeah, I guess like you said, maybe the reactions, maybe people just weren't thrilled.
Based off of y'all not even hardly, you know what I mean, like gritting your teeth to be able to act like you weren't dealing with it, I would say that most people are probably either like super inexperienced with anything hot, so they're just blown away, literally, or they're making a big deal about it because they're trying to get views, right? They want to make their video the one everybody watches.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some hype to it because I don't eat hot stuff all the time. I really don't. So, but it's it's hot, but it's these videos that I see other people do just seem ridiculous. So,
And maybe just having experience before, like, what are you going to do? Running around isn't going to make it less hot. Like,
yeah, or spilling milk all over your house and digging in ice cream and acting like an animal doesn't seem to, isn't going to help you. So I don't know.
So, if we go to, like, when I did mine on that Saturday afternoon, I had 321 views, 64 likes.
I think you had more
That's because
views.
everybody was rewatching you.
well, that's a good point. You'll get that like little bar graph that'll tell you what part of the video everybody's watching. Or I think.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that if they would have done that, like on the weekend or earlier in the day, they probably would have got a lot more views, and it probably easily would have hit over 50 likes.
For sure.
Maybe. But it was 2 competitions in a row where nobody peed themselves or fell on the floor or the ambulance didn't get called. Well, we don't know what you did off camera, but there was no ambulance, so I don't know.
Yep, no ambulance, no peeing of myself, and I wish I could have damn well puked, but I could not friggin' like force myself to puke. So it.
You think bread works? Just eat plain old bread after? Would that work, or is that useless?
I didn't eat anything. I just drank some Pepto-Bismol because it was mainly my acid reflux that was kicking in and causing it to be completely horrible.
I don't know why you wouldn't want to burp that back up.
I kind of think the chips are worse than the gummy bears, personally. Doing both of them, because the chips seem, I don't know, it's more mass, it's more oily, it kind of sticks with you. Yeah, you know it the next morning. The gummy bear had a horrible aftertaste, at least for me. Like the next day, like brushed my teeth and you still taste it, brush your teeth again, you still taste it. Like you just couldn't get rid of it the next day, kind of. It was weird. And tongue almost felt like kind of chemical burnt or numbish a little bit. I don't know. It wasn't really numb, but it just felt weird.
It's
And
probably because that's like a receptor that it's wailing on, and normally a pepper hits like a wave, like a bunch of the receptors, and then that one a little more. But like a spectrum, and that's probably like you're saying, like a chemical, like it's just hitting that one receptor 100%, and that's not natural, right? Like it's weird.
yeah,
Like metal or something.
it was a little strange. But thankfully nothing too bad. I think digesting the gummy bears are probably easier than the chip. But just my opinion. And to me, hot's hot. So the gummy bear may have been just a little hotter. I don't know, maybe. But the chip with all the pepper seems like it's almost like a nastier hit. Like it, I don't know. Like it's more natural or something.
Nowhere near any of that, but I was in Oklahoma City one time and I got a cupcake it was like a chocolate cupcake with, I forget what kind of pepper, but some kind of pepper in it. And they made a big deal. So it was some kind of fancy pepper. But it was like in there, some kind of juice, right? It wasn't like there was chunks of pepper in there. But that was interesting. You ever had chocolate mixed with, not like so much that it was going to make you gag or anything, just enough to make it, normal food temperature. But it was a pepper, I would say more like jalapeno or red hot pepper, kind of a hot pepper in a chocolate. So it had eat the chocolate and then afterwards you get that warmth, like if you ate something like, hot peppers.
I've never had spicy chocolate.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had it
I don't
since,
forget.
but if it was in front of me, I'd probably eat it again. It's not like I haven't really seen it since either, but yeah, I'd say it was interesting.
Sounds like a girl's name that works in a bad part of town,
So, Vanessa, could you ask a couple questions out there? One was puke from what? When I ate the one chip challenge, after the 30 minutes, there was times where I wish I could have just puked it up. But then I'm like, it probably wouldn't have been the best idea also. But yeah, like pretty much after 10 minutes, the heat from the chip was already like pretty much over. At least in your mouth. And then about 30 minutes in, that's when it like hit the stomach and started really causing any kind of irritants. So
Yeah, you should do the gummy bears. I think you'd do a lot better with that. Chance to redeem yourself. What do you think?
no. Nope. With the acid reflux, the way it is, I'll just go back to eating the jalapenos and like stuff like that. And some of the hot sauces that I normally eat. Not really gonna try to be doing the crazy, stupid stunts.
Yeah. Well, they say peppers are good for a lot of different things, including possibly fighting cancer, all types of stuff. There's a list of crap that goes with it, but obviously, yeah, everything in moderation too. So overdoing it all the time probably might not be good for your system, honestly. So I don't know how that, there's probably a point where it's too much.
Somewhere between like peppers are good for you and like find the hottest pepper on the planet and then make an extract out of the hottest part of it and then put a drop of that on your tongue or something.
Yeah, or use something like that every day at lunch. Like that might not be a good thing. You know what I mean? For some reason or another.
But I've had stuff with a lot of pepper in it, and it's a painkiller. Like it's good. Like you can have like a back pain or something and eat something with a ton of pepper in it. It's good. Oh, they're saying to eat a salad. We found a salad pizza the other day.
Oh yeah, that was we were talking about Mod Pizza on the after chat of Foss's show last night or early this morning, however you want to look at it. And they have it's pretty good pizza, At least it was the first time we tried it the other day, and it's a new restaurant here in the town up the road. So we tried it. It was like sub $10 for an 11-inch pizza. All the toppings you could want. They didn't care. And
what? Did it have cheese?
Dude, we had. I'll read you the list. I did this
Did it have
last.
crust?
It had cheese. It had crust.
Sauce?
So
it come in a box? $11. What?
It was $10. So
What?
we ordered.
Who'd you rob?
Hold on, listen to what was on it.
So it was a red sauce, garlic rub, chopped garlic, spinach, arugula, mozzarella, ricotta, Asiago, Parmesan, feta, gorgonzola, ground beef, pepperoni, mushrooms, pineapple, red onion, roasted garlic, oregano, fresh rosemary, and then on the very top it had pesto drizzle and ranch swirl.
Wow. That sounds like a heck of a deal.
And it was $9.63.
Not bad. Not bad. Got an extra cheese with pepperoni for $2.99 tonight.
So
Cheese and extra pepperoni.
yeah, that was quite the pizza, and it was on thin crust.
No, that's cool. That sounds like a good deal for sure.
I mean, if you live in a state that requires, sales tax and stuff like that, of course they're going to have that on top of it. But if we go to the store or a restaurant and it says $9.99, we're paying $9.99. And it's not like, oh, it's $9.99, but then you got 8% sales tax, so now you got to add another like 80 cents on there.
Yep. Yeah, you get it doing the math. Unfortunately, it sucks. I wish it was like that. The marked price should be the marked price, but you got tax, and like you're stating, in some cases you have multiple tax. Like if you look at like a cell phone or something, by the time you actually pay and settle up, you're like paying an extra $80 sometimes. Some cases even more.
Yep. PNW says, but you pay income tax. That blows. The thing is it comes out of your paycheck before you ever even see your money. So it's not like it's, hey, I'm going to get paid. Now I got to go pay, this income tax. or I got to file income tax and then pay it all at the end of the year. It's nothing like that. And depending on how much money you make, it's just like federal taxes. You could potentially get money back. Now, not always, but you possibly could.
Yeah, in some cases you can, or at least not have to pay a lot. Sometimes it's beneficial to lose money, meaning invest it in something, buy a trailer, or buy this or buy that, because at least you end up, you get something for the money in a sense, instead of giving it away. Not necessarily giving it away, but depends where you're at. When you start getting to that area where you switch brackets, that's where things get a little funny sometimes.
Yep. People are kingpins that is the list of things to not put on my pizza or any food.
I'm not down with that ranch drizzle stuff, or the lady gets something once in a while, some type of buffalo wing pizza or something, and they put some type of buffalo sauce on it. I don't know. Any kind of sauce on the top just don't look right to me as far as a pizza. I don't know.
Where they take like a mustard thing and they squirt like a squiggle, like a, how would you call that? Like a
just blobs all over, or pinwheel spiral on the whole pizza.
like the drizzle you'd put on like a cinnamon roll or something if it was frosting, except they're putting like say like a barbecue sauce or a ranch dressing. It's like it's a freaking pizza. I'd like it, like dip it in there if you got to have something extra. Anyway, I guess you can understand it if you want it, but if a whole bunch of people are eating a pizza, like now you got ranch all over your pizza.
Yeah, but it's not like it's like a whole lot of ranch. I mean, it's just kind of like decoration,
That's what I mean. That's the point. Like, not a ranch on here, but it's not a lot of ranch. It's just a little bit. So,
and the thing is like you can design the pizza however you want it, and with as much toppings as you want. You could go through their list and put every meat topping on there if that's what you want.
Make your logo for $11.
I did not ask if I say, hey, can you?
Oh, man. If you can't, you need to show proof of that. That would be cool. Get your own custom pizza.
call it the G23 because there's 23 toppings on.
I should probably count up how many toppings was actually on there. There might have been close to 23 toppings.
I almost could understand it if it was like a couple of things and all the cheeses, but then you're like hamburger and pineapple and peppers and this and that and the other thing, lettuce and carrots or whatever. And I'm like, come on.
I want to get my money's worth. I want as much toppings as I can get without having to pay extra for toppings.
Is that like everything that isn't cost extra kind of thing?
Yeah, that was like everything that was on that list. I probably could have added more. Everything on that list was the custom pizza is like $9.63. And then you can customize that however you want it. And I went through and just started piling on the toppings to see at what point did they start to charge extra, and every topping I wanted was on there for the $9.63.
I don't know. That sounds crazy. Sounds like an experiment or something. I mean, it's a good deal that you can get all that, but just because you can, should you?
No.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you want to make sure you get your money's worth, right?
No, but
Well,
it
it
ain't.
sounds like you
It
could have
ain't.
went to your refrigerator and dumped a little bit of everything you got sitting in the door on a piece of bread, threw it in the toaster for a minute, and had the same thing.
So P&W Wood says too many toppings makes a soggy pizza. So this one had a nice crisp crust, and it was out of one of those brick fire ovens.
Yeah, an oven is the only thing that could handle that kind of wetness. But did it? And then was it like the top of the stuff was black, like it burned all the tops of everything because it was so hot?
No, I mean, it was delicious. Next time I do it, I will make sure I take pictures of the pizza.
Oh, there's not even pictures of this pizza. This is completely fake. Anybody could say all this stuff.
But yeah, it was delicious. I mouthed the hell out of it. The wife enjoyed the couple pieces of pizza I allowed her to have.
How big is this thing? Like personal pizza or like a,
It's 11 inches. So, like, what, a medium at a Domino's or something?
for like $7 or whatever, $9?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy good. I don't know. I think of pizzas that come out of one of them ovens as some kind of cracker snack because it's not real pizza. But I do understand what they're so good with that kind of, is that water dough crust or something, whatever they call that. I know what you mean, but I still think that's too many toppings on it. But I love the idea of one of them for under $10. It's 11-inch pizza.
Well, it seems small though, and that almost seems like more than Domino's or something. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
getting,
but it's going to be better.
but yeah,
I mean,
11 inches isn't a very big pizza. Yeah, that's, I don't
no,
know.
it's not huge. It's not huge, but it'd be good lunch or whatever. So like,
Yeah,
put all them cheeses on there, and then like one of those toppings, not pineapple, but one of the normal toppings, and all them cheeses, and that sounds good as hell out of one of them fancy super hot ovens.
And see, the thing is okay. So if you would just say, well, it's way more expensive than, like, Domino's. Okay, well, if you get, like, a medium 2-topping, yeah, you're going to get an okay deal. But if you get, like, a medium specialty pizza, you're looking at, like, $14.
well, I was just using it as a reference, so like size of pizza versus what you could get. I'm not a huge Domino's fan, so I don't want to, use
Yeah.
that marker in a sense. But to me, if
Well-
pizza comes from a pizza shop and it's like, twice the width of meat, you know what I mean? You're talking like, I don't know, like a stop sign size, you know what I mean? So anytime you get one of those little 11-inch pizzas, I'm thinking like personal pan or, a lunch and you give a couple slices to the guy in the next booth or, you know what I mean? So that seems smaller, so, but, it's a
under
lot of
$10
time.
though. It's under $10 though.
I mean, crap, wasn't like Little Caesars pizzas 11-inch about that for $5.99?
Oh,
But
that's
that's-
a long time though. That was a long time ago.
That's one topping.
That's true too. They were usually cheese and pepper.
Sure, yeah.
You know, anytime you wanted any of their, like, Mitza or their whatever, that was automatically you were going to pay like $10.
Pretty much the same as Pizza Hut, right?
Yeah, kind of like,
I
Any
call
of
them
those.
corporate pizzas. Like all those
Yeah.
corporate chains, they can, they're buying their flour by the farm. They're not worried about prices and stuff. They can keep prices down. So I figure anything that's homemade with a real recipe and real equipment is worth some amount of premium. Is that the word to say it? I mean, I'm not paying double or whatever, but I'll pay a little bit more or go a little bit farther to get something that's a decent quality food instead of the corporate stuff that you can get anywhere. I think one of the reasons it's cheaper is because you're not getting anything.
Yeah,
too edgy. You're just getting kind of the plain vanilla version in the middle.
yeah.
You guys ever try those DiGiorno's? Since we're talking about pizza.
Only maybe once though. Because they're not. Wait, is that just the crust and then you put whatever you want on it?
I think they have that in the full pizzas. So
Well, I don't think I've had the full pizza.
yeah, it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno or whatever. The whole thing was commercial
Yeah.
here or
Yeah.
whatever.
No, you're right. Those are full pizzas. So I think I must have back in the day, but not in a long time.
And
I've
then,
tried those, and honestly, I thought they were pretty bad. To be honest with you, like when it comes to frozen pizza, I'd take like a Red Baron over one of those any day.
Yeah, Tombstone or the inexpensive ones are
Yeah,
usually pretty darn
exactly.
good.
Even Tombstone, like over that, because it just the crust wasn't great. I wasn't impressed for almost like the price of takeout. You know what I mean? It just seems like, where's the sizzle? You know?
You guys ain't as old as me, but back in the day, your parents would let you go after school and be like, come back when the lights are on kind of thing. And in the summer, it'd be like, oh yeah, we'll see you when school starts. Like you could go for a while. And sometimes they'd send you places. So you'd go to like some kind of camp or something. And that's where I remember Tombstones, because that would be the kind of thing where we'd be at some kind of a camp or some kind of a school thing or something. And that's the kind of thing that your allowance, like 3 people's allowance, could pay for a Tombstone. And then that'd be, enough to split between 3 kids. So I can remember Tombstones being, that kind of the first time we were out ever able to buy food that we ate together, is like whatever. So I've always liked the idea of having a pizza that you can make out of a toaster oven and just eat at like a gas station or someplace that's not as elaborate as a whole restaurant and all that. Take out into the parking lot or take on the vehicle with you on the way to wherever you're going, that kind of thing. So I've always tried the different ones along the way or through my life or whatever. There's some bad ones, but most of those frozen pizzas are pretty darn good. Like there's a lot of tech in that or something. Like most of them are pretty good in their own way. They're different.
yeah. And so I think the one you were thinking of, G-Webs, is the one you build your own, is the Boboli,
Oh yeah, that's a big thing.
where you get the crust and then you get the sauce and then
It's like
you
in a
add your
box.
own cheeses and crap like that. Yeah.
Yeah, the personal pizza. I remember that being a big thing from when it would be like you go somewhere and it would be like, okay, now y'all have to decide. And then somebody'd just be a jerk, like, oh, we're all getting sausage. And then somebody'd be like, no, it has to be pepperoni. Or the weird, I got to have the extreme topping person. And then you get those personal ones and everybody could get whatever they wanted and not fight about it. Wasn't like every time you went out, but I remember that being a pretty big evolution in Pizza Hut and pizza.
Yep. Or the half and half pizzas where you could, if the restaurant offered a half and half pizza, you could kind of get to split it.
I feel like there should be some sort of a warning if we're going to start talking about pizzas, especially frozen pizzas. Make sure people have a frozen pizza around before you start making these kind of conversations happen.
I remember personal pan pizzas like being an incentive. I can't remember the program, but it was through school where they tried to incentivize you to read so many books. There was like a program. I thought it was like a national program. Yeah.
It was.
Like you get a pizza at lunch or like separately in addition?
No, you get like a certificate for it. Like, do you think your parents sign off that you read so many books or this or that, and you get a certificate like once a month or something? I can't remember what it was, but something like
and
that.
then you just take it to like Pizza Hut and you just get
Yeah.
Oh snap! No, I didn't have that.
So it was like a summer readathon or something like that, and so like a lot of times it was during your holiday breaks where read 5 books during your winter break, and you got 3 free personalized pizzas, pan-sized pizzas, and stuff like that, and then if you read X amount of books during the summer, they had like a stepping program. So like if you read 5 books, you got 3 free pizzas. If you read X amount of books, you got more, and then if you maxed out, then you got like 1 free pizza a month for the entire school year or something like that.
That's freaking awesome. I think that's better than donuts and I think that's a pretty good idea. There's a salad place here near here, so I could say, maybe a thing to a salad place if they have that, or if that becomes a thing. But we have a salad fast food. A Jack in the Box got torn down, and they put up a place called, I think it's just called Salad, like a weird eye.
Yep. So we've got Smeggy out in the crowd, PNW Woods, the goddamn Bacon, Rich White, Gizzard Gary. We've got Gunpowder Beauty. Vanessa Kitty has joined us. Defense Dad. Rob's eating some kind of fudge. Or is that a caramel apple on your plate?
Making brownies, man. Two boxes at a time.
That's what you give out for Halloween?
No. No, just a snack, I guess.
Yep.
Damn, 2 boxes of brownies for a snack?
Yeah.
Sure.
The lady's a brownie junkie, kind of. So I like the edges. She likes the center. And if you do one box, speaking of, well, maybe this relates to something else, the earlier conversation, but everything's going up. These boxes are getting smaller. There's all this crap. It seems like one box isn't the same amount anymore. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I haven't been paying attention, but when you do one box of brownies in like an 8x8 or 9x9, it ends up being like almost less than an inch thick. Like,
yeah, that's the scam. They keep the box the same size. They just drop it by an ounce, drop it by a half an ounce, drop it.
That does not look like the brownie on the pan. You know what I mean? It's, or on the box in a sense and whatnot. And they're too thin. The texture's not right, and so it just seems easier just do them as doubles.
So PNW Wood says local locations, I think, do it sometimes, but the program, or don't sometimes, but the program still exists, and he put a link to the program. So
That's cool.
It's probably only for little kids. Can't be old and do that.
yeah, and then Kingpin says it was a sliding scale of a parent's willingness to lie for their kids.
Isn't that the truth? I know people that never read that and got their parents to sign off because they were cheap and just wanted the free pizzas. So that's funny.
Well, that, maybe the parents don't have a whole lot of money, and this is a way they can, hey, when we go out to dinner, you can get your own free pizza,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a thing. So.
So Gunpowder Beauty says 3 boxes make great brownies in a 9x13.
That's cool. I don't think I have a good 9x13.
Last one.
Yeah, we're running 2 boxes anyway. So.
Well, it should be in a glass baking dish.
Yeah, we acquired one.
Rich White's out here trying to act like he's one of those strict parents. He says, if the kids didn't prove they read the book, the sheet didn't get signed.
See, I heard Rich would sign it and then he'd just take the pizza for himself.
He'd eat the pizza while he was making the kid read the next book that would pay for the next pizza.
Probably. And the thing is I don't remember exactly what the rules were, but like you could have read those. What was it? The golden something. Those little kid books. They had like the gold spine. And they were called like golden something. Like they were a big deal for little kids back in the 80s and stuff.
Don't start talking crap about the Berenstain Bears, man.
Yeah, hey, those were like you could have read those books and got credit for reading a book. I mean, even if you were, in 5th grade.
And so what if I did? What's it to you, man? Get off my back.
I'm just saying. There was no standard of what kind of book you had to read. It's not like they were saying, "Hey, go read, 13." Wow, the wife immediately jumped to War and Peace. But yeah, it's not like they said you had to go read 13 books the size of War and Peace.
Supposed to do like 15 minutes.
Yes, they do it by minutes read now here from our most recent experience or something. So many minutes read qualify, or so many minutes that you read will qualify you to whatever. And didn't they have color levels for kids too?
Yes.
I think there was a color levels too. So somehow they, I don't know if they're marking books in the library. I'll go with color.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess it's got to be within a color tag. So I guess, after all the years that, they're catching in on the loopholes. Some of the ones before ruined it for the rest,
Like New York Outcast.
What? Hey,
Possibly myself.
never there.
I'm not going to say that I didn't cheat to get free pizza. I was a kid. Why wouldn't you?
Another thing, speaking because it's Halloween, I remember fire stations used to do demonstrations and all types of safety stuff on Halloween. And they used to hand out, they had like a huge pamphlet sheet thing of like free cheeseburgers at McDonald's. And I'll tell you something, I must have had about 100 free cheeseburgers. but yeah, that's something to keep an eye out for. It was a good experience. I actually got to sit in while they lit a camper on fire. So it was pretty neat. See how quick something goes up, all that type of stuff. Even as a kid, obviously things probably change now. I don't remember if my dad had to sign a waiver or anything, but then there was somebody right next to you to throw you out if they had to. But there might be some cool experiences at your local fire departments. So just putting that out there.
Did any of you guys have like it probably maybe was just a Washington thing, but it was called like summer jams or something like that, where you went to it was a basketball camp, and then you got to meet some of the local professional basketball players and stuff. And then if you met a certain GPA during each semester of school, you got two free tickets to go watch a basketball game.
I've heard of a program, but I don't think it was anything like that. So not that I'm familiar, nor did I take part in anything like that. So I believe there was something where somehow it was like a competition. You would win money, but it might be something totally different.
Yeah, so I went to the summer camp. It was called, I think it was called Summer Jams, and I got to meet Gary Payton, Sean Kemp, and Downtown Freddie Brown. and then I got to go and watch the Sonics take on the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan. That was pretty fun. And then 3 of us kids, because they had us in 3-person teams, we got to take on one of the 3 professional players in a 3-on-1.
If you won, you became professional players, and they had to go back to school.
I wish that was the case, but no, you just got to, play them in a 3-on-1 basketball game during the camp.
Next on the court is G23, who won against one of the professional players in summer camp, and now he's a professional player. So hope they didn't pass the ball to him again.
Yeah, that's cool. Something I guess you probably enjoyed as a kid.
Yeah, it's cool that they would do that, right, for the kids. Let them get an experience like that.
Yeah.
They're probably making bank.
Yeah, I only went to camp once. I don't know what was going on, but there was camp time. Some friends of mine were going. This is like elementary school, and I just figured whatever, they were heading to camp. And then somebody, I think the nurse, called me down, was like, "Would you go to camp if you could?" And I was like, I don't know, like, I guess. And there was some kind of poor kid program, so I got to go to camp for free. So
that's what I was going to say. Back in the day, it was like, I think there must have been some kind of government thing to like create summer camps, because it seems like everybody went to summer camp back in the day. And it was like the parents could drop you off for a week and get rid of you, and then pick you up a week later. Like, didn't have to pay for it. Right on.
Pretty cool experience, I guess. Getting out, stuff like that. Some of having friends there as well. Unfortunately, I was trying to make new friends, and a kid was like swinging in a tree, and I was talking to him and this and that, and I ended up like giving him a little push, like just trying to help the kid out. Well, of course, he lost his grip, fell, cracked his head open. Everybody's looking at me like I'm like a problem, but obviously the witness realized it wasn't like in a malice or menacing way. It was an accident, but it turned out to be a big, huge ordeal, and that was the one and only time I went to camp.
Have a good night. Reloading from the hot pot. So, the basketball camp was just one of those like day camps. You went during the daytime and you went home at night. It wasn't anything like you got to go, someplace fun for a week away from your parents.
Right, and stay overnight. And
yeah. Now, I went to a couple church camps like that because my mom forced me to go to church when I was a little kid.
Yeah, I've been to a church camp once. I've been to a bunch of different camps, and I was going to say the church camp was the most craziest of all the camps I've been to. But I went as sort of a weird, like I was, let's just say, a counselor at that one. And I wasn't really there as a, what do you call it, like the camper, I guess, or whatever, like the kid being there. But I was pretty young still. And so I didn't have to do nothing. In other words, I could just choose to not do anything. If I felt like it, I could just be there. And essentially an observer. And it was more crazy than any of the scout camps or any of the other kind of, like you say, day camps and stuff that I've been to. Because back in the day, too, they would, like, you were going to go horseback riding, they would make some horseback riding camp. And then you could do something, get a subscription, or what do you call it? What's it called? Like a scholarship to it. Apply to some scholarship. Somebody would be like, "Oh, I need more horseback riders in the world," or whatever. And you go to some camp for a week, learn how to horseback ride or something like that, or whatever it might be, play hockey or golf or whatever, the things that kids do back in the day.
So, like, the church camp that I went to, it was a lot of fun. Like, it wasn't one of those, like, religious things. We got
just a wholesome way to keep you busy all week.
Yeah. like 10 days, and we got to go hiking and learn how to shoot bows and arrows, and learn how to rowboat and stuff like that, tie knots, tie people up.
Now at scout camp, it was like you're going to have a week, and if you want to make productive use of your time, you could plan it out, or you can just fart around and do what you want, and then you might get in trouble because they didn't do nothing, but nobody's really going to care. But you kind of squandered your time. But you could do what you wanted, like you chose, and that was part of it, like learning how to manage your time and stuff. So at a church camp, because like I say, I can't remember. I was just there for like a week or something. Was it like, here's what you're doing, or was it like, here's the menu of stuff, enjoy yourself? You know what I mean?
So-
Was it like a schedule?
So, like, they had certain events that they kind of wanted you to go to, but then for the most part, it was like, hey, we have all this different things, you can learn how to, go boating, kayaking or whatever. And so you could sign up for that class or whatever. You could learn how to rock climb if you wanted to learn how to rock climb or whatever. And they had all these different ones. So you could like sign up for different things, or you could just be like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to chill and do nothing,
Yeah, that seems pretty cool. Was it like something would cost more, or was just all do what you feel like?
So it was all like you went to the camp and everything that was already included in the price of the camp. So like you could just go and be like, fuck, I'm wasting my parents' money, or I'm wasting whoever sponsored me to go's money.
Yeah, because like at a church, some other parents might help sponsor you to get there, right? Or like some other people might help sponsor you to get that kind of thing.
Yeah, a lot of like a lot of the people going to church would okay, well, we're gonna cough in X amount of extra dollars so that 20 kids can go to camp for free, or whatever it was. And you got to go and waste their money.
Oh, that's kind of cool, because then you could go one year and kind of figure out, oh man, I could have done all kinds of stuff. And half the time you go back to school and then everybody's like, I was canoeing and I was doing this. And you're like, dang it, I was sitting underneath a tree. And then you go back the next year and you do a bunch of stuff. And then you go back a third year, if you do, and then do all the stuff you hadn't done the year before, or double down on the stuff you did. At least that's the way it was in Scouts. Like,
Yeah, we got to go and do a whole lot of different things. And then depending upon your age also was depending upon like what kind of stuff they offered. And so I think I stopped going when I was like 11 or 12. And the last year I went, because of my age group, we got to have a co-ed dance. So that was cool.
Oh, this is that part where what happened at camp stays at camp.
dude, that's a totally different thing. That's where Scout Camp does not match up with church camp. That's what I was saying. Like church camp was a whole nother level because it was like girls there.
Yeah.
It's more like meatballs, where like Scout Camp was like we're all just sitting around being scouts, like worried about what fucking merit badges we're getting and shit.
Yeah, and so, and then of course, you always had probably from like age 9, 10, 11, those 3 years, you'd always raid the girls' locker, the girls' cabins. You'd go in there and, like just torment the hell out of them in the middle of the night, and it was,
my goodness, that'd be a crime. You go to jail nowadays.
Right? Nowadays, you would. But
and you'd be on 5 lists. The neighbors would be getting cars at the door and shit.
Can you imagine how polite a camp must be this nowadays?
Yeah. You're gonna
It's
sneak
8
out.
o'clock. Let's all go to sleep.
yeah, I mean, you'd wait for the camp counselor or the cabin leader, or whatever they wanted to call the person, to go to sleep, and then everybody in that cabin would sneak out, and you'd go and like terrorize another cabin. It didn't matter, and so you just trash the cabin, and so that they would be in trouble and they wouldn't get to do some of like the extracurricular stuff. They couldn't go on the fun field trip to the zoo or whatever because they had to clean up their cabins because it was like a mess inside and outside of the cabin. Stuff like that. You'd TP the cabins or whatever. You'd go steal all the toilet paper from one cabin and go TP another cabin.
Now, did you have competitions during camp? Like, Group A or Cabin A versus Cabin B or whatever, throughout the stuff you're doing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You'd have like
you're sabotaging people in these competitions, basically, is what you're not telling us. What you're telling us now. But, man, you were a bad kid.
The wife's over here tormenting the cat with cat food.
And my experience, we had like, they staged, obviously boys and girls were separated, but they would stage like so many older kids per cabin. So that way you're supposed to keep an eye on the younger kids, or if they have issues or, wake up in the middle of the night, miss their parents, all that type of stuff, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? So somebody was there, and then the counselor just like, soon as you went, like, soon it was supposed to be lights out, but you didn't really have to be sleeping. You were supposed to be in your cabin. They just all disappeared. So I think that's when the party started for them. Like they clocked out, we're done. If there's somebody screaming, maybe we'll come out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
we wouldn't come out for that.
Yeah, like the camp I was at, the cabin counselor or whoever, they had their own like little private room inside the cabin. And yeah, of course, lights out, they're going to go and hang out with all the other cabin leaders for a couple hours or whatever. And so you knew you couldn't go in that time because you're more likely you're going to get caught.
That's where all those 2 a.m. movies are made. The grade B cabin movies or the ski club and all that stuff. So they were having a real party. Well, you were off pranking other people.
So I would go to scout camp every year, and you'd go around, and we didn't get sponsors, but you'd do projects in order to make money so that you could pay to go. And then however much money you make, you could go for that long. At least that's how my parents was like, if you could pay to get there, go. You could leave, we don't care. So I would go for a couple of weeks if I could. And that's cool because my troop only went for 1 week. So that means I would go with 1 week for my troop. And then the other week I was kind of rogue. I could do what I wanted. And when you're in that place, then, just kind of like say, hey, do what you want. But you don't have to do whatever any troop is doing. But, so they might have things to do. Like, hey, we're going to get together on Thursday and do something. Well, you don't have to do that because you're not with one of them. And then years later, I became a counselor, and then it's the other way around. You get paid to go up there. So you get to hang out at camp and then get a paycheck at the end of the summer. And we were usually doing the same kind of stuff as the kids, like competing with the other, let's say, troops, like the other counselors and stuff, but just at stuff that we were really interested in, scouting stuff, like lashing and orienteering and stuff. So we were all getting ready to go into military and stuff. We were thinking of that as our ways to like really hone in our shit so that when we went in, we'd be beyond experiencing compasses for the first time, or the stuff that we thought we would need back in the 80s in order to go to basic or what. So we were there like getting stuff done. And those kids, we expected them when we were being counselors or whatever, we expected them to be getting into trouble and doing shit. And we would only get mad at them if we caught them. You know what I mean? Like, that was the way it was back then. You were supposed to figure out how to get shit done. This was the era of like MASH and shit like that. So, and if they were yelling and screaming, we were like, hey, we can hear you. Like, be quieter about this. It was different times, I guess.
Yeah, I think it would tend to suck to be a kid these days because, like, the stuff that we got away with and generations before us got away with, they couldn't even think about doing, like, these days. Because, like, even during the competitions, like when Cabin A took on Cabin C in the sack race, if you could, you would knock them to the ground, so it was harder for them to be able to win. Or if you did like the 3-legged race where your right leg is, strapped to your partner's left leg, and so you have to try like running together in unison. Hell yeah, you would try knocking the other people over, whatever you could do so that you would win. I mean, that was kind of part of it. Knock somebody into a tree, whatever. If you did that today, you'd go to jail for like assault with the intent or something.
There's differences though, in a sense, like modern kids, you don't miss what you never had in a sense, like different experiences or whatever. That you was able, your parents would let you drive when you were 12 on the back roads, and if a cop pulled over, he might tell you to knock it off or something or whatever, but it wasn't a major deal. Or nowadays, CPS, you might lose your kid, you're gonna probably lose your license, all types of stuff. Like, a lot of things they never knew, now. But now you got to remember, like, the average kid, not like, I guess, the last so many years, but I guess, maybe 10 years old, something like that. Like, they've kind of had it like super easy. I mean, the school system is a crutch for anything, like, you don't feel like sitting still here, chew some gum, go walk around the halls, like, all these different things now where we didn't have that shit. Like, go home, your dad smack you in the back of the head until you stop being stupid. Like, you know what I mean? Like, total different experience, like, you didn't have a choice. You were getting it done. Like, stuff like that, where now, kids just get away with arguing and talking about everything and doing whatever the hell they want. And then, get a pill, and then they end up with a classification, and then they can really do whatever the hell they want. And, I don't know. Kids today might have it better. Honestly, I'd argue the fact, maybe not better, but I'd say it's close to even, just different points in the scale or something.
I think they got it worse because they got it easier, but that's going to be
harder later.
Less for them. Yeah, right.
For sure.
And what do they hand on? Like, here's something I don't. How can they hand something they don't know to the next? Right. That's the frustrating part.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's lots of examples. I mean, even people that'll refuse to push a broom at work. Like, if I don't know, if you're a shingler and you're waiting and this and that, and the ground's dirty, like, stay busy. You know what I mean? I don't know. It shouldn't be beneath you to push a broom, but a lot of people are that way nowadays. Like, they just feel entitled. So I think it affects things across the board, but I don't want to harp on a whole nother, situation or whatever. But so it's really hard to say. But yeah, like you said, later in life, I think, being soft now creates problems later, and major breakdowns. Like, you don't want to screw up as an adult, you know what I mean? Because it sticks with you forever.
Yeah, I wonder what camps would be like these days. Is they just, hey, here's a bunch of computers and cell phones, and we got really crappy internet.
Maybe. I'm sure supervision way over the top. Kids are probably less likely to be able to explore things on their own, or say a navigation course, be back here at such and such time. Like, that's probably not a thing anymore, or at least not without some type of guidance. And that's kind of depreciates the experience, because there's always differences between the parties, and, it's a whole teamwork, work together type thing. So, I don't know, or some parents might be just scared that there's no supervision. Or, what do you mean my kid won't have a phone? Oh, no, they can't do that, or I got to be there. So, so I don't know. It's hard to say.
Like, back in the day, technically, somebody could have just parked on the road, walked in, and grabbed one of us, and, like, the enemy unknown. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we were playing
like half the game, maybe before they actually called the police, they might, might have sent somebody looking around, thought this or that or whatever. Yeah. Now, I mean, you go to the bathroom and you miss a count and everybody's raising alarms.
Well, they're worried about that. So yeah, there's gonna be a fence, and then it's like nobody's allowed to go anywhere without a friend and this and that. I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's probably safer, but I don't know if it's necessary or just all for theater so that they make sure that it could never happen type of thing. But yeah, it's gonna make a different experience.
Like when I was at camp, one of the things we got to do like was like the navigation kind of thing. But so your cabin, if everyone in the cabins, so like cabin A would take on cabin, B or whatever in this navigation. Well, one of the people in the cabin would be like way out in the middle of the woods, and you had to get to your missing cabin person, rescue them and bring them back and get back to the base before the other team did. So you'd have people, you had to learn how to read maps and stuff like that. That was kind of fun stuff. Imagine putting a kid out in the middle of the woods and nobody else is there, and hope and pray they got found by dark.
Were you getting like coordinates at each stop? Like you would go to, say stop A, and then you'd figure out where stop B is, and then C. And then,
Yeah.
Okay.
You started off with one map, and you'd have to find your way to, whatever place. And then at that next place, you would get the next clue and another map. And so you had to keep going through until you finally found the missing person.
That might be simplified a little bit for a younger age or something, because it's not a scouts thing that you were in, right?
No, it was just a church thing.
Like scouts or something, you'd probably all just be the same map. You're just getting different.
Scouts would kind of depend. Like some scouts were into sports, and some were into like book learning shit, and some were into like crafts or something, and some were into like every different thing. So it was kind of what the parents were into or what the group was into, because scouts was all about the kids ran it. So the kids now are into sports, so the troop becomes like a sports troop, and they worry about sports all the time, and they do the other scout stuff that they have to, and then everybody would be like that. So sometimes you'd go to camp and everybody be into camping or something, and that's what they'd worry about. But other times you go to camp and everybody be worried about, I don't know, something else, like camp map and compass. So you kind of had the ability to focus on what you felt like and then ignore the parts you didn't want.
Oh, that's cool for the individual.
Well, it kind of sucked, because if your troop was into this, then you weren't into it, then that would be lame. So then you had the option to like try to go to another troop, at least for us, because there was a bunch of schools and churches. You could kind of talk your parents and let you
Like that, the individual can focus on what they find and like from it. You know what I mean? In a sense, in theory.
No, yeah. In the big picture, because like you might join a troop because it's in your school, and then you'd go to camp and find out they're into fishing, and you're like, what the hell? They're going fishing every day, and I could be climbing on that tree or something, or going shooting, right? And then there was no troop that was into shooting, unfortunately, but there was different troops that would tolerate it or not care about it or whatever. And then there was troops that were like, do what you want, I don't care. Like some of them, it's just like a lot of things. Like there was the one troop that the parents didn't even care. You could do whatever you wanted. They were like the burnout troop. And you would go to that troop if you just wanted to do what you wanted and just kind of have a vacation for 2 weeks, and nobody would harp on you about it. But if you went into some other troop at like some church and you tried to do what you want all week, like some of them were jerks about it, and like, tell your parents about it and get all mad and make it miserable for kids. Anyway, so there was like diversity there, but you might not know that until you went to camp and then figured it out. At least that's what it was, the dynamic when I was a kid. Like I was in scouts for a long time, so some kids would get into that and get out of it, but other kids, at least back in my day, kids would stick around, and we'd shuffle around troops because I wouldn't be in a sports troop. I wouldn't have any interest. But those kids, when they went to camp, they probably just played baseball all day or whatever they were into. Like nobody cared. You were there to do what you wanted. You'd have to do some things together, but for the most part, that's not kind of how it went. So you might take 2 years before you figured out what troop worked for you good, but that was kind of the fun of it too. You figured out it's a free country and not everybody has to like everything, but you can all kind of get along and do the things that you want to do at a cool place for a week.
So Rich White was saying something about he had sexual harassment training for like a week. I don't know if that was it.
Kind of
That's-
kid
He said it basic in 99. When I went in, there was the form still said something like, "Are you a homosexual?" And they had crossed that out. Like the "Don't ask, don't tell" was like a week and a half before I enlisted. So like they hadn't even changed the forms yet to like you couldn't enlist in the Army if you were a homosexual.
talking about basic or something.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about in 99, like 10 years after when I went in.
Okay, so that makes a little more sense because I didn't see that other part.
Did he come from like, pedophile school or something, or pedoville school? Like first stop at camp is sexual harassment. Like that sounded crazy, but no, it makes more sense, I guess, being basic. So I didn't experience that. We had a lot of finance, so a lot of that. Times have changed. Don't kick your dog. Don't beat your wife. Don't get caught with an underage girl. Careful with your finances. All this type of stuff. If you want to, you'll find you have some different opportunities now, and if you take advantage of them and don't honor them, we'll honor them for you. Type classes. So screw around and get a new car and decide not to pay, they'll take it right out your paycheck. So.
You're talking like in processing and like welcome to the Army life type of thing?
Kind of, yeah, like after intake, but some of the initial classes and basics. So I think that's what Rich was referring to because we've
That's
talked
probably
about
what-
before.
Although I could see them making you do that, like in, what do they call that, receiving or whatever, when you first get there and you're waiting for your class. Like I could see them telling you that right then so that nobody started getting on each other's nerves right off the beginning.
Yeah, it was after receiving in a sense, though. So you were actually assigned at that point, or whatever, however you term it, but you were started. But yeah, it's I guess every different time people go in, there's probably different political points they're trying to hit for some reason or another. So they gave that speech a lot about like driving drunk or beating up your wife. So I don't know.
And saying he was a pilot for that kind of program. It was a test.
Yeah, and then also CNT was saying that I was saying that kids in camps these days that would be best case, the more than likely have to have pronoun and sexual harassment training in camps these days. And then Rich was talking about sexual harassment. That's how it.
Oh man, I can't even imagine how weird it is with all the layers and stuff. And I can't.
Well, there's
Think about
probably
the food. Think about the food. Like, I can't have peanuts, and I can't have glutens, and I can't have meat, and I can't have milk, and I can't have whatever.
There's probably still a big variety, though. I mean, maybe even more particular, where you could, if you had the ability, the finances to send your kid to a decent camp somewhere. So I know there's some places that focus on like rock climbing, belaying, all that type of stuff, rappelling.
I bet those suck, though. I bet those are lame.
There's different types of camps out there. You know what I'm saying? So I guess, it'd be something to consider. But if you send your kid to, I guess, the most popular one that's being passed around at school, then it's probably a mess. So I don't know. And I'd assume they probably spend half the time on the phone, and a counselor will say, "Hey, you want to go get involved in the game?" And the kid will give them a dirty look, and the counselor just got to walk away because
Exactly.
So there's a school district like head of the school district here in Oregon, in the central part of Oregon, that now she's getting a bunch of backlash because like there was a camp that a bunch of like kids from different schools go to, and one of the like teachers or adults that was there with the students from that school district said that there was kids that were feeling a certain way. You know, they weren't liking the fact that there was a, what was it, transgender or something there, and that they felt weird and they didn't want to have to shower or change in front of these people. And the school district, the head of the school district, like immediately sent school buses to take the kids out of there. And now she's getting a bunch of backlash, being called like a transphobic, homophobic, you know, and all this other different stuff, saying that that never happens at the camp. And, you know, it's like, dude, if the kids said they were, you know, they felt awkward about this situation, I think she did the right thing.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, if it was a pretty, you know, if it created too big of a distraction, whatever the situation is, then, you know, it kind of ruins the trip one way or the other. So, yeah. So, yeah, I could see it. I mean, I don't know. I you know, think people are free to do what you want to do, but you can't force things upon others or be upset if people react differently, you know, because of your choices. So, you know, it's kind of, you know, America.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is if the kids didn't want to be at that camp, that's the end of it. They didn't want to be there, you know. So now you're going to, you know, go after the school district saying that she needs to be fired and stuff like this and removed from her position because she listened to what the kids said. I kind of think that's what the reason why you put her in that power, you know. So we got Ghost Tactical out. Oh, go ahead, G-Webs.
I was just saying, I think it's a no-win scenario. I think it's one of those things where something can be done and then it can be evaluated, but I don't think you can persecute somebody for as if there's a right answer, right? It's a very difficult thing, and it's kind of one of those no-wins. So whatever they do, as long as it isn't in malice, then they got to be given a grain of salt or whatever it's called, and then maybe evaluate and bring stuff to the table like why it was wrong or something. But you can't just go, here's something that you're not ready for or accustomed to or been prepped on. Do it right, or else you're persecuted. What the hell? When did that become a thing?
I mean, they didn't know, like, was this a camp counselor or something? Or somebody in the school, or?
It was like some of the like camp counselors and, you know, like people who were running the camp, and like I guess no one else, not like all the schools that were sending the kids to these camps knew everything that was going on or whatever. And so like, and then all of a sudden they get there and that they're there for a little bit of time, and then all of a sudden, hey, you know, parents are, you know, some of the kids are calling their parents, and the teacher was calling, you know, the school board saying, hey, this is what's going on, stuff like this. And so, yeah, they just, you know, sent, you know, buses that were in the area because they had a sporting event going on. And so they called those buses and sent them over to the camp to pick those kids up and bring them up, and sent other buses up to bring the kids back from the sporting event when that was over. So it's kind of like a whole weird kind of situation.
Yeah, you'd kind of think like a school board would have to clear, you know, like, you know, a specific camp, you know what I mean? Because they're going to have to send out permission slips, all this type of stuff. And obviously, you don't want to send kids to a camp that just opened up 2 years ago and it's ran by, a guy on the sex offender list or something. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not going to go good with the school. So you'd figure somebody would at least kind of, you know, put eyes on the camp before you go responsibly sign off to send your school children there. So
Well,
not saying it would be a problem or anything, but what I'm saying is, like, you think they would have some notice of this or could have discussed this prior to sending. It could possibly be, some talk about this one because of A, B, or C, or whatever the situation. And I don't know. It does kind of seem weird, I guess, the whole thing. But I definitely wouldn't see the lady getting fired over it. I mean, yeah, I'd be more pressed on firing a lady if all the kids were wanting to leave, parents were pissed off, and they just refused, and parents had to drive up to the camp themselves. You know what I mean? Personally, that would seem kind of worse to me.
It's like a camp that had been around for a while in Oregon, but it was the counselors. I'll try pulling up the story.
So they weren't woke, and the school wasn't having it. The brownies smell good. Everybody just stop talking, or did I lose signal or
We're
something?
talking about brownies, and they're not saying nothing, and we're just hearing about brownies, how good they smell, or whatever. But whatever, no problem. Here, what about the? Here we had brownies where you make them out of smashed up figs and some chocolate chips and like cocoa powder, Splenda.
Oh,
and
my
then
God.
just raw. That's actually a thing, I think.
I'm trying to find that story so I can.
6 minutes. For the brownies.
6 minutes till the brownies are done.
Yeah, so I can open and check them. So.
Oh, yeah, you don't.
Actually,
Probably. I don't
talking
know.
to what I'm reading in the chat, so I wouldn't even. I was definitely interested. I was going to say something that I was reading in the chat.
Oh, I got that ghetto stove, so I got to keep an eye on it. So.
Wait, when did you say you went in?
Me?
In here? Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Younger than me. Oh shit. Oh wait. You got issued shoes then, or did you have to bring your own shoes to basic?
I got forced to buy shoes. I was actually pissed off about it because I just bought brand new shoes before I went in. But actually, it was a good thing because they actually fit my shoes and all that, and it was a lot better. I was thankful afterwards. So, but at first I was.
They give you shoes, but they make you buy them. In other words, like
Yeah,
here's the shoes,
yeah,
you got to
with like I think it's like $500 on it, and it's like from Uncle Sam for you to purchase any of the stuff they tell you got to buy, and then you get a list. You walk through the PX. They size you up in the beginning with shoes and things like that. You get your PTs at that point.
Really? Well, that's probably just a difference in time. I mean, we did it more like back in the. You've seen maybe a movie where they like walk you through a giant warehouse and they just throw stuff at you.
We have that. Yeah, we have that too.
Okay. So maybe that's just uniforms. And
stuff. You had a list of stuff to buy, and like you couldn't buy anything aerosol, so like no Lysol. I bought a can of Lysol anyway because one of the classes we had to sit through was like the STDs and stuff. and they showed you pictures. I swear they should show these to kids. Like, it turned my stomach. I couldn't even tell what I
Oh,
was
yeah.
looking. When
I
they
do
zoomed
things today
realized
because
it
of
is.
Army movies I've seen.
Shit, I was buying Lysol. I don't care who said what. So, I
Yeah.
took a chance.
Okay, so it says Central Oregon School District pulls students from camp minutes after learning of non-binary counselors. The camp's director said misinformation about his counselors and transphobia led to the Culver School District pulling its students. Outdoor school is a rite of passage for many Oregon students when preteen students across the state spend multiple days in the wilderness learning about the outdoors. The sixth grade students of Culver Schools, a small district in rural central Oregon, were scheduled for a 3-day, 2-night stay at Camp Tamarack in nearby Sisters starting October 17th. It didn't go according to plan. Several hours into the trip, the school bus returned, loaded up, and all the students and their belongings and took them back to Culver. The reason district officials learned non-binary counselors would be sharing cabins with the students, according to letters sent to the parents later that day. Interviews with the district and emails from October 18th show school officials took little deliberation before pulling students from the camp. Much of the district's concerns were based on misinformation about Camp Tamarack and its non-binary counselors, and the actions could potentially cost the district thousands of dollars in state funding. Superintendent Stephanie Garber later wrote to parents saying some students had expressed discomfort with staying in cabins with a non-binary person, particularly with dressing and showering in front of the high school-aged counselors. She said she had heard about the concerns from Culver Middle School Principal Brad Kudlick, who himself had heard it from teachers present at the camp. We stand for the emotional, physical, and mental safety of the kids, and we stand for clear, open communication. Garber said to OPB, so we had to err on the side of caution. And it keeps going on.
So basically, it's like a cross-dressing dude that's trying to stay in a girl's cabin.
Or,
Do you
yeah,
even know that could be a girl being a dude? Is that what it means? So you're going the other way?
I don't know. But I can see where, people might
Either
get up
way, yeah.
that.
Like if you don't
Could
understand,
be a problem.
yeah, and the thing is if the kids said that they, were uncomfortable, I completely agree with what the school district superintendent did, and pulled the kids, I don't see that there was anything wrong with her actions.
Yeah, I'd agree if they're saying they're uncomfortable about it and stuff, and alarm's going off.
I vaguely remember going in and buying like a washcloth and like soap and stuff like that. Those guys are all talking about buying stuff in the thing, but I don't ever remember getting any kind of allowance. That would have been awesome.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, G.
Go says they gave us a set of new camis and jungle boots before graduation. Then with the uniform allowance, we got a second pair of camis and another set of combat boots.
But I was reserved, so I would go hang out at the what did we call it? Is it commissary? No, commissary is the food, the PX or whatever. Like I would go in there and buy stuff constantly because it was cheap, super cheap.
Stuff
So
was
backpacks and stuff. Pretty much anything they let you buy.
they're in there for like $3.50 or something like that. It's crazy. Like the tactical Under Armour, like supposedly because it was bought earmarked, and apparently if you catch any flames, it'll stick to you and melt to you. So it had to stay safe sides, but they were in a PX like crazy. But you'd go into like a store and see those same shirts for like 50-60 bucks. Not necessarily 50-60, but it was ridiculous. But yeah, initially they did have us go in and buy like a washcloth or whatever you could get. They sold blue fuzz and all that type of crap, but like I said, they gave you a list of stuff to pick up.
They make you wear the uniform, they make you wear all the clothes and everything, but like when it comes down to like how you want to brush your teeth or wipe your hat off or whatever, like that's up to you. Here's your options, but got to be in this bag type of thing, right?
Kind of. I mean, but I gotta. There's nothing. I mean, I
bet you in the Marines it's not like that. I bet you it's like, here's the soap you're using, and here's the washcloth you're using, and here's the piece of whatever tweezer you're going to use. I bet it's not under like that level. I never asked them. But based on the level mad they are, I bet you take that.
Ghost is out in the crowd. If he wants to join, I can always send him a link, and he can come in and tell us if they got issued crayons.
No, they didn't. I have heard that they would have a whole set of stuff that they'd set in their locker. We never got that bad. Or like we never got in trouble that bad to where we had to keep a whole extra set of shit that was perfect all the time.
So that wasn't me, but that was like a picture of the PX and whatnot, pretty much. Would give you a basket, this and that. They're checking your receipt on the way out to make sure you didn't buy anything you weren't supposed to buy.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Like that initial time. Yeah.
They repoed a camera for me. So I tried to get a camera in there, and they repoed that, which was good because I also had the Lysol, and I wasn't supposed to have the Lysol, but so the camera was kind of like the flash bait, and I got to keep my Lysol. So never got
talking kind of about olden days and doing stuff, and Vanessa, he's talking about Air Force uniforms. So when I was in Civil Air Patrol, right, we go on to this Air Force base and Quonset huts, like the metal dome looking buildings from the World War II. There's like these Quonset huts that are probably old hangars or something, but they gave them to Civil Air Patrol as like storage. And basically they were there, and the equivalent of a scoutmaster, like the adults that were in charge of us, they knew about them. But not everybody knew about these Quonset huts full of loot. And it was all this cool stuff from Korea. And long story short is once we found out about it, we basically had, it was a bunch of stuff that was available to Civil Air Patrol. And all you had to do is sign for it and say that you wanted it, and it was yours. And they told me I could do that. So this was right around when I'm getting to be 16. So I would go there whenever I could and just rummage around through it's like Indiana Jones building, like just these two big giant Quonset huts of crates. So I'd be like finding field telephones, or like we already had MASH tents and stuff. So half the stuff we already had, because the guys that had already gone through there were, the same way. Like, hey, we'll take this and we'll take this and we'll take this. And they didn't want it. They were happy to get rid of it. So, but man, those were the days you could go through there. And the main thing is I'm big. So trying to find uniforms, they just didn't make a lot of like large uniforms. So trying to go through all the uniform things, just endless uniforms in medium, and then endless ones of large, and then endless ones of large extra short or something, like just the weird sizes that no one used up in Korea. And anyway, that was some of my favorite times.
Become a pilot as a kid, like when they sponsor you as you go through the program or something.
Huh?
Civil Air Patrol, will they sponsor you to actually get your license?
Oh man, it's totally awesome. So it's the Air Force Auxiliary. So it's kind of like Scouts, where depending on how active it is in your area, they do different things. So some of them are into search and rescue a lot, because that's one of the big roles of Civil Air Patrol, is finding down airplanes. So out here in the West, that's a big thing. Like they actually do find down airplanes, right? Like it's a thing that has to be done. But back where I was from, like that didn't happen. If you crashed an airplane and fell on somebody's house, there was no airplanes to find. So you just practice that. But you could do other things. And yeah, flying was definitely one of them. So our squadron was mostly, they liked radios. So they would set up MASH tents with these giant generators that with like deuce and a half. So I was driving around a deuce and a half when I was 16, dragging MASH tents into a field. We'd set it up as fast as we could. Like 14 kids would set up this MASH tent as fast as we could. And then the adults would be throwing antennas up into the trees and stuff, and then leave us to do as we wanted. But that was our gig, like setting up the infrastructure for the radios. And then if there was like, World War III, Civil Air Patrol go out and help create some infrastructure, and then real people could come in and use the tents and use the radios. We would just have set them up, kind of prepped them, so we felt like we were doing something. But yeah, some of my friends were pilots. They were glider pilots at 14, if I remember right, hot air balloon pilots at 14. So by the time we were 16, they already had years of experience being pilots. So they were regular pilots by the time we were 16. So when we could drive, and these guys, I lived sort of near some richer areas. So I knew people that were way richer than us. We could drive, and they needed people to go with them sometimes. We could go with them and fly around. Like we barely got our driver's licenses, and I was flying with guys that already had like years of experience flying, and we would be driving around getting their hours, because you have to have X amount of hours to get your pilot's license. So by the time we graduated high school, if I remember right, this is a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure my two friends that were super gung-ho about being pilots, they already had multi-engine pilot licenses by the time we got out of high school. And they might have had
patrol help that though.
No, the one guy, I was going to say, his job was driving around in a van, refilling. I just got a mouse in a mousetrap. The guy whose job was driving around in a van, refilling candy bars and chips and shit. Like no sodas, but candy bars and chips. So free candy bars and chips. And he made a ton of money doing that. So he kind of funded his own way through pilot training. The other guy his parents were super rich. So he was no problem. But yeah, if you needed funding, Civil Air Patrol is all about like retired Air Force people. And if they see a budding pilot or some kid that's got potential, or some girl or whatever, it's like an engineer, heck yeah, like that's definitely what it's all about, is like, helping the next generation, helping you get into the Air Force Academy, helping you get rank and stuff. So being a second lieutenant in Civil Air Patrol gave me a stripe. So I went in with a stripe for being an Eagle and then a stripe for being a second lieutenant.
How's it going, Ghost?
In the Army, like, there's still stripes even if you don't go in the Air Force.
What's up?
So,
how's everybody doing?
Doing great. What was your basic like? Do you get to go or have any kind of crazy fun at camps as a kid?
You talking like as a kid?
Both,
or boot
like
camp?
Both. So like did you do any kind of camps when you were a kid, and then when you were in boot camp, did you have any kind of fun?
Like in Texas, there's a place called Sky Ranch, and it's just this big, huge camp. You go there for like 2 weeks at a time, and I went every year for years and years, and it's probably just like every other summer camp. You did horseback riding, you could do archery, you could do guns, the lake thing. Yeah, they would, everyone, like I said, that was the only experience I ever had shooting guns before I went to boot camp. Was at like summer camp, you shot a 22, maybe like 5 times. Like you get to shoot it 5 times or something, but they did everything. I mean, it was just one of those things where it was just a summer camp, and you stayed in bunkhouses, and I mean, it was just a big summer camp that you went for like 2 weeks, mostly because I think my parents just wanted to send me away for 2 weeks so they could have a vacation themselves. So, but I enjoyed a bunch of my friends. We always went, and, got to swim in the lake every day. And I mean, it's just a summer camp that you probably would think a normal summer camp would be.
Cool. You guys do competitions against other cabins or other groups?
Oh, yeah. It was all about competitions. I mean, it was all about like at the end of it, they had like all those different little things that you did, you know, like
And thing.
they have, I don't know what you would call like an Olympics or anything. Yeah, you would have all those little different activities you had throughout the 2 weeks. Actually, the first week, the second week of it is like a competition where you got points like for all those different things at the end of it. And then like the cabinet one got, you know, I don't even remember what they got. I don't think we ever won anything. So, but like we had like a rodeo, like they had people that could do like barrel racing and other people that would do different things on horses. And then we would do like archery. Then we would have like go-kart races. And then we had
Man,
like
you had
shooting.
damn, I'm
That's
just
pretty cool.
archery,
That's in
go
Texas?
kart. What the hell? I got ripped
Oh, it
off.
was fun, man.
That's in Texas.
Yeah, it's in Texas. I'm sure Sky Ranch is probably still around. It's probably much different than it was. I mean, I'm talking like back. That was back in the '80s when I was going to that, you know. But
A lot of
I
times
mean,
in those kind of camps, they'd be like a oar or like, you know, some kind of piece of tree stump, and then each year whoever wins it would add something to it. That would happen a lot at camps. Like whatever you would be fighting for would be some prize that you'd get, and then you'd add something to it. And then next year everybody'd fight for it, and then they'd add something to it, or like the next week or whatever it was.
I honestly I don't remember. I don't remember ever like our cabin like ever like winning the whole thing. Like we won maybe different events and stuff, but I don't think that I ever was on like a winning like the overall winning cabin ever. So I don't know what they got.
Would you say
I
this
have
was
no
for? It wasn't scouts. It was boys and girls.
No, this was that was yeah, that was the cool thing about it. It was definitely boys and girls. So
Was
yeah,
it like church or something else?
no, it was just a summer. It was called Sky Ranch, and that's all. But it was just it was a summer camp. It was just a big summer camp, like this huge ranch. I mean, it was literally on a ranch that you go and they built cabins and you just did different stuff. I'm sure it was probably affiliated with something, but I mean, it wasn't like you didn't have to sign up through a church, you didn't sign up through a school, and it was just you signed up and you know
It wasn't
parents
like
paid you money.
4-H or something.
No, not that I know of. I
Yeah,
mean, hell, it could have been, but I don't know. I don't remember anything. It was just a summer camp.
Yeah, some of them are just like you say, so that the kids are occupied in a safe way to learn shit.
Yeah, but it
Did
was
they
just,
have
it
a
was
big fire? Like our thing, one of the big things at a scout camp.
oh yeah,
There's a giant fire.
yeah. We had bonfires probably. We probably had a bonfire probably 3 or 4 times throughout the 2 weeks. And like we would just go and they you know you'd sing and all that, and then like there was one where we had. I remember one time there was a thing that we had to do. Like we had for every cabin had a sister cabin, which was awesome. I mean, they had to have known that we were doing stupid stuff with the girls, but they, you know, we had a quote unquote chaperone, but he was like a 17 or 18-year-old kid, you know, or maybe no, I'm sure he was probably a college age kid. It was like our I don't know, he's in charge of our little house. But I mean, he was like, I mean, they were always cool. Like they knew we were gonna do weird stuff, you know.
Oh hell yeah!
But as long as we didn't like do anything stupid or, you know, like they weren't worried about sexual harassment, you know, they didn't, this is back in the '80s. They weren't, as long as we were on the campus and we weren't, you know, like they didn't catch us out and about at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like it was just, I think they were there to make money. And as long as the kids were having fun and kept on coming back, they really didn't care.
Back
that was
in
a
the
different
day,
time
if
too,
did
you know.
something inappropriate, they'd kick the shit out of you, and you'd figure out.
Yeah, exactly. Or they'd either beat the hell out of you or they'd send you home. Either way,
Oh yeah,
like they didn't care, you know.
One time we did get the balls to leave, and we went and got soda and a pizza. And I don't know why, because like I said, it was one of the things I really liked about the place was the tombstone. But I think it was more of the like, let's do it. We've done everything else, but we've never booked out of here before. Let's book out of here. And we didn't have soda. Or at least, it was the thing they could do. So we went and got a pizza and brought it back just to prove that we could do it. But that was about the only time we ever booked out of there.
So CNT says the home of Sky Ranch since 1978. This place has been a haven for Christian fellowship for thousands of children, counselors, and families over the years at Ghost Tactical. Looks like the ranch is still there. Gunpowder says all fifth graders were able to go to Sky Ranch camp.
Oh man, this was it wasn't just fifth. I mean, like I went for like it might be a thing now, but like we went like 3 or 4 or 5 years in a row, like and we were like in middle school age.
Wait a minute. You are a Marine. How many times did you go through fifth grade?
Well, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
4 times.
I was a super senior fifth grader. So but no, like this was like, I want to say we were probably like 9, 10, 11, 12 or 10, 11, 12, 13. I mean, like we were going still like when we were in middle school, and that like the last couple of years we were like 12 or 13 or whatever. Like those were the fun years because like we were old enough to do mischievous stuff, but like not destructive stuff. Like whenever we're destructive, we were just very mischievous. And like I said, like that we had like a college age kid that was like our counselor, and like they helped us a lot do all that stuff. But they also like we weren't going to go up and set things on fire or destroy stuff. It was playing practical jokes on other cabins and having like water balloon fights. I mean, it was fun. It was just a fun summer camp,
Manhunt, middle of the night.
I mean, we would do scavenger hunts every day. It was fun, but everything was fun. But like at night, yeah, like lights out at 10 o'clock. But they knew we weren't turning the lights out at 10 o'clock. We'd stay up till 4 a.m, like talking or sneaking out and playing pranks on the cabin next door, or trying to sneak over to the girls' cabin, or like sometimes the girls and the guys, we'd meet up at the lake and hang out for a little bit. But like, I mean, they knew we weren't gonna like be weird or anything, Then again, it was like I said, it was a different time back in the 80s,
Yep. Gunpowder Beauty says camp counselors were 17 and 18. A lot of schools that was added as a school credit for those graduating the following year.
Oh, see, this was not through the school. This was just a regular, like I said, it might be different now, but Sky Ranch back in the day, it had nothing to do with the school. Like this was like your parents wanted to get rid of you for 2 weeks and you just went.
Oh, okay. So Gunpowder says, I mean, that was the early 90s. My 5th grade year was the first time it was offered to us. Middle school was definitely able to go. So it was like you probably had to be like 5th grade age to be able to go to the camp.
Yeah,
I think is what she's trying to talk about.
Oh, that probably makes sense. I mean, like I said, it probably was. I might have been 10 years old, which would have been what, 5th grade. It might have been like, yeah, that they might have had. You had to be 10 years old or out of 5th grade to go. I went like 3 or 4 straight years. So it was like I said, middle school time. So that very well could have been an age restriction type thing.
No, you never went to be a counselor or nothing. It was not that.
Oh, no. Like by the time I was old enough to be a counselor, bro, I was having way too much fun doing my own thing. I was getting in some serious trouble by then. They didn't want me as a counselor, I promise you.
Right?
There's a reason why I joined the Marine Corps. Won't get into that, but it wasn't because I had a sense of duty at the time. I promise you.
It was an option?
No, it was an option. It was the only option to stay alive, honestly.
Oh.
Like I chose to go. It wasn't like a court mandated thing. There's a couple of guys in my platoon that were court mandated. A choice, but no, mine was just I got into drugs and alcohol really, really bad, and I was either going to do that or die, honestly.
So when I was a stupid teenager and I was doing, crap that I shouldn't have been doing, and I got in trouble with the law, there's times I wish that I would have been, either join the military or, go to jail option. Not just, hey, you're going to jail, but that wasn't an option because...
no, they were downsizing. They didn't want more people.
Well,
yeah.
That after '96 and the Brady Act, that like pretty much did away with that ability.
Well,
In
the
a lot
Cold
of
War was over. They were done. Clinton wanted less spending. He wanted to spend it on other
Yeah, like I remember, you were in before I was, but the last about 2 years, the last year and a half I was in, they froze. That's why a lot of us got out. They froze promotions.
Yeah, they made it intolerable. They made it
They did.
less interesting. There was no
Yep.
point. There was no chance of doing anything. You weren't
Yep.
I mean, and the thing is, they were like, "Hey, if you came in to get college, here's your college. Go get out of here." We don't,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
you have a
Yeah, you
6-year
got your
contract,
GI
you don't
Bill,
have a
and
contract anymore. See?
go for it. But yeah, they froze promotions for us. Now I even just about my MOS or something. I don't know, but like they froze promotions and they made it to where like it was like you wanted to get out. But then, once again, they were downsizing the military's footprint. So I mean,
And at the same
you
time,
know.
technology was just killing jobs. Like, you know, we
Mhm.
wanted to have fewer people. Plus, we don't need anywhere near the amount of people we ever needed before. So,
Right.
with the people we have now, we could do 10 times the work, and we don't need to do any work. Well,
Yep.
effectively.
when I went and talked with my recruiter, Gunnery Sergeant First Class Bone Crusher, and when he told me he asked, "Well, what do you want to do in the Marine Corps?" And I said, "I just want to be a grunt. I just want to be a ground pounder." You know, I was like, I'd be happy at 0311. You know, just let me be a basic soldier. I don't need to go to become a recon sniper. You know, that wasn't. I just wanted to, you know. And then he's like, when I told him, you know, kind of the stuff that I had done when I got in trouble for, he's like, "Yeah, you're just too violent to join the Marine Corps." I looked at him and I said, "How can I be too violent to join the Marine Corps? Your name is Gunnery Sergeant Bone Crusher."
Well, I mean, here, let me just. This is. I can't speak for any other branch because I never went to a different recruiter. Like, but at the time that I made, and I want to say the conscious decision, but I really wasn't conscious back in those days much. But when I made the decision to join, like, I already had my mind set up on the Marines just because I said, I mean, people that know me, I'm very competitive, like ultra competitive. And like my mindset was, if I'm going to join the military basically to get out of the situation I was in, like my only thought was, if I'm going to do this, I'm doing it the hardest way I can. And so the only office I went to was the Marine Corps. So I can't speak for other branches, but I will tell you this about the Marine Corps. There is a big misconception about who we are and what we are, but they don't want people that have the mindset of, I want to go kill people, because at that point it's all about being selfish, and the Marine Corps is all about team and all about mission. And they don't want necessarily people that are saying, just give me a gun, I want to go kill people, because at that point you put yourself over the Marine Corps, and that's what they don't want. Now, that was back in the 90s, so I can't speak for now, but like literally they were turning people away. They said, look, if you're not all about team and about mission, like we don't want you, because that's who we are.
So at the time that I went and talked, I had just had a case dismissed that had 30 counts of assault and battery in the first degree with the intent to do grave bodily harm.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just,
So,
I mean, like I said, there were people. We had a guy that got caught up. He was a college swimmer at a major Division I school, like legit, like college swimmer. But he got caught up in a credit card fraud ring with some of his teammates, and it literally came down to Marine Corps jail. And he chose the Marine Corps. I don't know if they do that option anymore.
No, wait, because we had a guy too that I don't know what his story was, but he was basically given a choice, and I think it was week 2, week 3. He was freaking out and begging to be taken back to jail, but they wouldn't take him.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know if the choice was
Yep, and he graduated.
jail or Marine Corps, or maybe it was jail or service, and you get to choose your branch. I don't know. I never asked him. Did you get to choose the Marine Corps? Or did they tell you to go to the Marine Corps? It might have been jail or military, and you
it's-
might have got to choose your branch. I don't know.
It's jail or service, and so then you can kind of choose, what you want to go for. But I never got that choice. Again,
Yeah.
Went out and smacked, bone collector there. So, he assaulted him, got arrested, and then the judge would give you the choice.
Yeah. So who was that saying out there? Vanessa said that I signed on to 6 years. So yeah, our contract was for 5 years with an additional 6th year option when I signed. But once again, by the time that my 4 years was up, they had frozen promotions basically, and we're downsizing the military. So like the 5-year contracts were cut down to 4. And so at the 4-year mark, if you were getting out, they gave the option, hey, if you're going to get out, then we'll let you out now. Like they were trying to get rid of people. It was sad. It was really, really, really sad, the state of the military. I am glad that in the this is after Desert Storm 1. So like they had such a big buildup for Desert Storm that I guess they were getting rid of people. And then obviously September 11th happened and the big influx happened again. But it was just, it was really like, it was bad. I mean, it was really, really bad that last couple of years in, because the Clinton administration, it wasn't just the Marine Corps, it was the military as a whole. They were just downsizing the military. And like I said, just made it almost miserable to be in, to where people were like I said, they'd say, hey, if you have a 5-year contract and you want to get out in 4, like go for it. Like you're out.
You listen to some of these interviews, military interview shows, right? And they'll talk
Yeah,
to the people that
yeah.
were, talk to the people that were doing like tip of the spear garbage, because that's all they ever talk about is the tip of the spear people. Like that's all they ever did. But when you think about, as they're saying stuff, I'm thinking about all the people I've known, right, and knew and stuff. And you think about that, and what we did is we moved from big army to little army, or big, special operations from big platoons and things. So, and everybody was in on that. Like everybody's got a piece of special operations. It became special operations.
Yeah,
but anyway,
absolutely.
so as everything changed, it was like a shift, and they didn't need all these people. Like I was saying, technology and stuff. Once you can see the night and you can send 12 people in, you don't have to have any of the consequences or cost of sending 1,000 dudes to own a town. Like that kind of stuff changed the game. So yeah, there was a lot of that. And you listen to these guys talk about how they are doing this and that and the other thing. And I'm thinking, or just as you were saying that, I'm thinking, yeah, as they were learning how to figure out, you think about all the major things we know about the Iran thing and then the desert one and all that. Like as they were doing that, at the same time, the way that they were paying for that is by throwing home platoon. Like they were taking down whole bases and forts. All that time was like, which forts are we closing down? Which bases don't we need anymore? And that means tons of people that aren't getting paid anymore, which is, you might need to close a whole base to pay for one special operations unit, but it's just a different way of spending money surgically instead of with a giant hammer. Sorry, sorry, Mr. Pelosi, I didn't get too soon.
No, because like when I was over in Okinawa, they had just closed down the base in the Philippines. And like when I was in Okinawa, like all the guys that were like staff sergeants, gunnies, like the staff NCOs, all had these stories of the good times that were had over in the Philippines. And like my generation never got to go to the Philippines because they closed all the bases down in the Philippines. So, and it was one of those things where, yeah, I mean, they closed down now. It's like when I was in Okinawa, there's probably maybe, roughly 8 Marine bases spread out throughout the island. And there might only be like 4 now. They've closed down the air base on Okinawa and then put all of the Marine air stuff on the Air Force Base. And so, I mean, that was all in the late 90s, early 2000s when they were doing all the base close down. So that was still part of the downsizing. And it's just, it's a different footprint now. And you're right, G. Like my unit, like, I think it was maybe like 3 or 4 months after I got out, like the unit that I was in no longer exists. They took the different parts of our unit and spread them out throughout different things, like Force Recon, and went to what is now SOCOM and all of that. But like we had Force Recon, Anglico, the intelligence branch, and all the Marine Expeditionary units were all under one flag. And then a few months after I got out, they kind of took, okay, we're going to put Force over here, Anglico over here, the Muse over here, and they all went to different things. So like the unit that I was in doesn't even exist anymore. But they were learning, I guess, evolving maybe in a good or bad way. I don't know.
From listening to all the people in interviews and stuff, and I don't know Marines other than these interviews.
Yeah.
Talking to you guys, but it sounds like that's when the big officers, generals and shit were deciding, oh, we don't need this anymore. Throw it away.
Yes.
As
Yes,
opposed
exactly.
to like, quit doing that, you idiots. You keep doing that, and then we keep needing us, and we have to learn everything again. So quit doing that. Plus, we don't get any money. And I guess you guys were like, hey, we want night vision. We want to be able to see in the dark like the Army. And they're like,
oh my God,
don't even get me
stuff
you don't
on.
need to see in the dark. Like, come on, you're Marines, just fight. And then you were fighting all those kind of battles. And
it got to the point where it was bad. Like when we had our MVGs, like I remember it was like pulling hair, like to get batteries for the MVGs. Now you remember the MVGs; these were like the first time MVGs were used. They were primitive, and these batteries didn't last that long. But it was like pulling hair. Zoe, no, baby. Like trying to get batteries for MVGs, or I mean, it was crazy. So yeah, they were learning, but they were also learning.
Generals didn't want you to have any of it, so it was like
no
to get our garbage, and then you were like, well, look, we can use their garbage and drive at night, and now we don't get any casualties. And then
exactly,
finally, like,
they definitely, all of our operation stuff were at night. Like most of the stuff that we were doing, we trained to do at night, but they didn't want us to have. They didn't want us to have the availability to how do I put this? They wanted us to succeed in night missions, but they didn't want us to have everything that we could to truly succeed at night. It was a pain in the ass. Now, once again, they're also talking about, and you were right, like instead of sending a battalion for something, which is, let's say it's 1,000 people, instead of sending a battalion to do something, they were sending a platoon of 32 at that point. So they were learning how to do smaller team stuff. A lot of stuff that we went on, we would only send a squad or two, like maybe up to 16 at the max, instead of sending a platoon, much less a battalion or a company. Like they were sending a squad or two saying, hey, first squad, second squad, you've got to go do this. And you're going to be gone for, a month or whatever it would be. And instead of sending the whole platoon or even a company, much less, they would never send a battalion anymore. But they were learning how to sit there and say, we can still get a mission accomplished with half or a third of the fighting force. But that also meant that we had to learn different fighting techniques, which was, I guess, that is where they evolved to where they are now, is small team. Like sometimes we'll just send a fire team of 4 guys.
And that's where they come in. You send 5, 6 guys, and when 8 of them come back, they'll send another 5, 6.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Marines,
but they also taught us they also taught us to succeed with only 4 or 5 guys too, though. So that was nice, Sorry,
I know.
What were you saying?
All the some of them have come from things or sources, I guess. You know what I mean, in a sense, even though it might have just been a small time period, but the jokes always carry on now.
I got the impression, I'm getting the impression that if you lose 4 Marines, then they'd send in 4 A-10s or 4 Apaches.
If they lost 4 Marines, it was like, oh well, it's just 4 guys. I mean, I'm not saying it was like that, but it definitely seemed that way. Like it was like, hey, we're willing. Like, what's the number that we're willing to lose? And instead of sending 30, if we're willing to lose 8, then let's send in 8. And if it doesn't get done with 8, then we'll just call it a scrap. Now that said, that's somewhat of a joke, but there's some legitimacy to that. They definitely had a built-in number of man. It's not just Marines; it's across the board military. But they definitely started thinking of what's the casualty rate that we're willing to accept in this mission, and that's what we're going to send. And if it
As
doesn't work,
opposed
then we
to
figure it out
sending-
later. Yeah.
As opposed to sending in overwhelming all the time. But that's definitely different than, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that was happening throughout those different wars that were happening. But,
Yeah.
you know, it depends on if you're whaling on a town that's just, you know, like not going to change versus sounds like a lot of these things were little mountain towns or little towns out in the middle of nowhere. And the assholes would hire, you know, 13 kids from another country. Hey, go
Yeah.
ransack that town and take it over. So all you had to do is, well, not you, but you know, all someone would have to do is go to that town, take out 13 dudes, and the town was back to normal again until somebody decided to hire 13 dudes to wail on that town again. And it was more of like just monitor the town, show up and go, hey, everybody okay? Are you really okay? Is there anybody we need to take care of? And then every once in a while they'd be like, you guys killed our goat. And you'd be like, here's $1,000. Like, okay, thanks.
Oh, that was real too, though. Like that was
That's a
absolutely
big-ass part
that's
of it, yeah.
absolutely real. Was oh yeah. Well, see, like, and it also really depends, I guess, on what your job is or what your unit's mission is. And like our mission was not to overwhelm or take over anything. Like our job was to observe. Like they weren't even really supposed to know that we're there. Like we were like drones before drones were there. So like our package was, hey, you're going to be here for 2 weeks and you're going to basically hide in plain sight for 2 weeks, observe, take pictures, write down everything that has to do with this target package, this HVT, and then our intelligence and reconnaissance work that we did went to someone else, usually like a SEAL team or something, who would actually then implement that HVT takedown, whether they capture or kill. It's either a capture or kill mission, you know. And
You're talking like go in somewhere, find an empty house or take somebody's house or give them $200 to take their house or whatever. It's
So-
$2,000 to take their house and then hang out with
so
them for a week.
I'm not going to tell
Their
you.
house.
Yeah. So I'm not going to tell you like where I was, but in one place we were there for 17 days, and we had basically were there to get intel on this XYZ person, and there was a capture kill mission involved with that. So before the capture kill mission could go in, like they had to know how many people were in the compound. Like, did this guy ever leave the compound? What was his daily routine? We sat there for 2 weeks and watched and counted every single person. How many small arms were in the compound? Like how many men were there? What was the rotation for security?
You're not paying people for that intel. You're just watching.
No. We were there, but what we had to do is what we did is so we went with 2 squads, which is basically like 18 to 20 guys, right? And so one squad was on at one time. Now we had Overwatch and we had everything else. We took over. It was basically a 5-story building, and we took over. And so once again, this is what's interesting is it's not like there's. So you see these high-profile missions that SEAL Team 1 takes over this or takes out this person or whatever. What they don't know is there's 5,000 people included in that mission over a 6-month period. So all this other intel had been done. By the time we got there, they said, okay, these are the 4 buildings that we think are vulnerable for a takeover within, 100 meters of the compound or 200 meters of the compound, or whatever that threshold is. These are the 4 buildings. So we'd sit there and say, okay, here's what we have. So we ended up taking over like the top floor of this, what was basically an apartment building. And that was kind of our HQ for 2 weeks. And so when your squad wasn't on duty, you were back at the HQ, you're sleeping or doing, whatever you were doing while the others were on. So you had your Overwatch on the top of the the roof. But here's the thing, yeah, we had to pay. Now, once again, a lot of time I wasn't in charge. I was just a freaking, a E2, E3, so I just kind of did what I was told. But yes, like the people that were on, like I remember this one place we were at, there were still two families on that entire floor that were occupied, and we paid them to stay there,
just to like hang out with you,
just to hang out,
Or
because
hang out with them.
we wouldn't allow them to leave, because if they left, they could go tell someone that we're there.
Well, yeah, and that's how you keep. Well, everybody's
That's
happy
how
that way. Yeah,
Absolutely, they
everybody-
didn't care. Like, hey, I get paid to stay here for 2 weeks and hang out. Like, not a problem whatsoever. They weren't like prisoners, but they weren't allowed to leave the building.
But they got to feed you and like.
Yeah, and then they got to hang out with us and stuff.
Most
like
of
that,
the
but they
time, you're
weren't allowed
also
to leave.
taking out. You're also taking out the foreign sons of bitches that are ransacking the town. So I'm assuming
This is
they're
true.
like,
Oh,
yeah,
they
okay, whatever.
to a certain extent they liked us having there because they felt safe.
Yeah. Except for the part
Yes,
where
we
you might
were
get
taking
your
over their
house.
homes, but it is what it is.
There might be a whole bunch of rocket missiles shooting into the wall one day, but aside from that part of it, it's pretty safe.
But yeah, it was like I said, but we learned to do that stuff with 20 people, where maybe a decade before that they might have sent a whole damn battalion of 1,000 people to do certain things, and now they're doing it with 4 people, and it's like,
Dude,
or
you
6
talk to
people.
you listen to some of these guys, they just go out and do it. And then they come back and they're like,
Yeah,
oh, I was supposed to do intel, but I turned it into a force recon and now it's over. So
exactly.
anyway.
Yeah, right. Hey, we went ahead and took the HVT out. So yeah, don't worry about it. It's done. It's taken
Confirmed
care
and
of.
done. And when you got cell phones and you can verify and shit, yeah, it can be like, yeah, confirmed and done. So next mission, let's go.
Oh yeah, there were no cell phones. We didn't have internet. Like, it was really weird. So like we had put it to you this way, like we would take pictures. We would, there was 8 of us. So we had a squad. There was 8 of us at one time that were on, let's say. And we had basically a 360-degree view of the compound. We were spread out to where all angles were covered. At the end of our patrol or end of our time, we'd go back to the building and we'd do a debriefing. And here's my notes, here's my notes, here's my pictures. And we literally had a guy, he was in this one place, he was a local, and he was paid because he could get in and out. He had a car, everyone kind of knew him. So it wasn't like weird that he was driving around. And he would literally, if you think about it now, holy cow, I haven't even really thought about it. Like, he was putting his life in complete danger. He was our runner from that building to our base, which was probably 5 clicks away. And he was running all of those pictures to be developed and all of those notes to the base and then come back. So like I never thought about that dude, like seriously was putting his life in danger to do our running for us so that we didn't have to be worried about being seen. He was doing it for us and he was getting paid to do it. But like, if that guy got caught somehow and he had all those pictures and film and all that, there's no telling what could have happened to that guy.
Well, not anything pleasant.
Yeah.
So we've been joined by Drop It Like It's Scott out in the crowd. Welcome.
What's up?
Yeah, even the people, the place is a big risk. So I'm sure they're hoping whatever goes down quick, or at your departure, because you pick up and leave and somebody else comes in and there's a 2-week delay. They're going to be sweating for those 2 weeks. Yeah, that's a liability too.
In the grand scheme of things, and you guys understand this, but the average person may not understand. Like, if we had to go somewhere, like there was a really, really bad person that was there, and typically the really, really bad people made the citizens of that area, their lives were hell. And so they were happy to see us. One, they felt safe that we were there, but 2, like we were trying to help them out in a way. Like, we did, honestly, the U.S. government doesn't care about those people, if their lives are good or not. But if we were to take out somebody, that effectively made those indigenous people's lives that much better. So like they were on top of being paid, and it wasn't a lot, but you're talking about people that made maybe like $100 a month was their salary, and they're making $100 a week for us to stay in their apartments. Like they were rich, you know.
Yeah. Month. Yeah.
What's that?
I said there's soldiers in other countries that make $2 a month.
That's right. So they were happy. They were happy to have us there, and
I would say that we do care because at least we got to the point where we figured out that we're better off when we care and we appreciate that kind of stuff. Because at one point we would have just said, "Get the hell out of your house. We're going to take it over."
Yeah, sure, exactly.
When we're done, and now we're like, well, you know, it's way different. But we have a lot of units that are completely designed to deal with the PR equivalent. You know, like
Yeah.
And that turned out to be not just like good PR, but like tactically and strategically super efficient, like super smart. And I don't know if they figured that out ahead of time and they just followed through, or if they're just, you know, going to say, "Oh yeah, we knew that was coming," you know, and they're just happy about the coincidence. But from what it sounds like, there's a lot of intel, there's a lot of goodwill, and there's literally, you know, just we learn so much when we don't walk in and push people away and we talk to them afterwards. You know, we do whatever we do and then talk to them afterwards and follow up. Like we just get so much more awareness that, you know, there's just a lot of communications things, cultural things, right, that we just can avoid and not have that rift or that gap anymore. I'm not saying it's perfect, but we're it's not just for PR, you know what I mean? Like we're figuring out that like we're better off when we understand the footprint we're leaving and why we're doing what we're doing. Like none of that bullshit. Remember when we first got out there and it was like, "Oh, let's build a well and then leave," and then somebody blow up the well and you go back and build the fucking well, and then you figure out Vanderbluten or whatever the fuck the name of that place was making $1 million every time they built that well. So they didn't give a shit every time the well got blown up. Like after a while, we figured out that was a mechanism and we quit doing that shit. And everybody's happier because they got their well all the damn time.
Right. I tell you, you know, and this is something that is a big deal. And I think that where one of the most important things that's ever happened as far as the footprint of how we dealt with indigenous people was when they created what is now the mission of the Green Berets. And a lot of people think that the Berets are these special operation like operators, and they are. But what people don't realize is 99% of what the Berets do is training. Their mission is to go in undercover in a country and take indigenous people, recruit them, train them to be their own army, their own, if you will, rebel army to help support to where we don't have to have all of our troops. That's literally the mission of the Green Berets.
The French resistance. So
like they go in and say, "Look, we can recruit 200 people in a 6-month time, train them to be their own defense militia, if you will." And that's the mission of the Green Berets. But what happened through that mission is the government, the U.S. government and the military understood that we don't have to go in and ransack all these places and basically take over and fly our flag over these people. We can utilize assets in country to help us to where we don't have to risk American lives to do certain things. And so I think when the Berets mission was set and they realized we can go into country and use these indigenous people and to have them help us, because there are people that will support our cause in every country, then I think what happened is that went military wide and said the footprint of using locals to help us as assets could be crucial, because now instead of sending 50 people, we can send 12 people and use 38 locals to do other jobs for us. And that's a huge thing, because it does help with obviously not having to send as many people downrange to a certain thing, but too, it helps
infrastructure. It teaches teach a person to fish.
That's right. And when you leave, you're also exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. So they can help us with our mission, but when we leave a month later or whatever it is that we leave, years in some cases, the people there have skills to fend for themselves, or at least know how to, help fend for themselves and not having to rely on, Big Brother to come out and help. So
So
I mean,
berets go from OSS, and you got the people from the OSS going. Let's not forget this. After World War II, this worked. Like this got rid of Nazis. This worked pretty good.
Yeah.
Like French resistance and all that. So they took the blueprints and created the CIA, and then
absolutely.
you got CIA who doesn't wear a uniform, and you don't know what country they're in. They're getting intel and they're causing trouble and they're clandestine and they're gathering intel and they're sabotaging, right? Without a uniform. Then you've got Green Berets, which come in and they put one foot in the. We got our uniform on, but we're not. We're different. We're blue and green, or we're blue and yellow. We're not big army anymore. So it was a liaison between CIA and military, and that was necessary in Vietnam for getting into Laos and what you're talking about. So if you've got a bunch of people like the indigenous from Vietnam who were pissed about anybody in Vietnam, let alone the communists or anybody
Right.
else.
It didn't really matter as long as it just, if they're
And they
willing
were
to help
like-
in any way. Yeah.
You're like, you give me an M16 and let's go kill. So you'd get
Right.
one beret or 10 berets, 2 at a time. We'd go out and lead 100 Montagnards or whatever against a bunch of Viet Cong, and that worked, right? So now you, like you just said, educators, right? So now you get in, but also intel, gathering intel. A lot of times berets would go out and mess with them so that they'd fight with us, and we'd be poking at them and going, okay, you got 37 people here, and that's where you're running.
And more
back
important,
to.
exactly. Just
And
to
then
figure out what they had. Exactly.
We need to know where they
100%.
were so that we could send in airplanes. So we were out there
Absolutely.
doing forward air support and that kind of stuff, and showing the Viet Cong or the Vietnamese how to do that. So we're keeping them busy. We're also doing that whole tactic of like, make it seem like there's 80 people over here when we're really getting ready to knock out your bridge over here type of shit. We
Right.
didn't win, but we also stopped the Cold War from going into Europe. A lot of people don't talk about that, but
100%.
Vietnam lagged for a while because we didn't have a Cold War in Europe again. Or I mean, we didn't have an actual war in Europe again. But anyhow, so you get that you get that skill set though, right? And we didn't kill it. Like we kept it going, right? And like you say, we intertrained between branches. Now you guys got screwed. Your special operations got lost after each war. Your force recon, your like hardcore, let's go in and just kill people stuff, kept getting pulled back and just become ship Marines or whatever. And that was your generals doing that. Navy didn't have nothing. They had SEALs, I guess. So anyway, so then you get to these wars, and what happens is SEALs' job is just accomplish stuff, period. Like just doesn't matter what it is, go do it. So when it gets to war in the desert, we have SEALs who are able, and so they just went over to Berets and said, here's how the Berets said, here's how you teach. So then SEALs were like, okay, we can go do this. So when necessary, SEALs just duplicate what Berets do and go, like you just said, teach the people that are there how to resist. But the thing is, depending on which war you're talking about, which country, half the time it was just rich sons of bitches paying for people over here, teenagers in one country who are something, angry about something, to come over here and take out a village. Just rape the village, do whatever you want. It's yours. Like it's your Allah, whatever. It's your destiny. Take that village. Here's a bunch of guns and money. Do the destiny. Screw with the capitalists. And then, it was a bunch of fighting like that. So it wasn't send in 30 people or whatever. It was like, let's get rid of these people who are here that shouldn't even be here. So the people that lived there were like, hell yeah. So we were teaching them how to keep people out of there. And like you say, sometimes the Marines were more like, they own a valley and they're trying to mess with somebody's poppy production or something. And there's like skirmishes that warlords are fighting over valleys. Well, that's when you send in 200 Marines and they take that valley and screw those people on both sides. It's our valley now.
Yeah, it's our valley, and we're in, and everyone's going to hate us at that point.
But I found that it's definitely like, I saw it as the Berets came in and at first it was like, go do intel, figure out what's going on, because the Berets talk the languages and SEALs don't necessarily. Your guys or the Navy is sort of like zoned for a while there, but they were more like task oriented. Like you're going to be doing drug intervention, you're going to be on a boat, like you have these different tasks. You're going to go in the mountains. And then they cross train. Like the SEALs had their own thing, but their main thing is whatever you need them to do, SEAls just do it, and they'll do it well. Like, it doesn't matter.
They do it very well.
5 minutes to get it ready.
I talk smack about them, but they're very good at their jobs. Let's be honest. They're extremely good at their jobs.
But yeah, then it turned into just when necessary, just sit there. It sounds like just sit there and make sure that the bad guys don't get to infiltrate a town and help the good guys whenever possible. And
so
kind of changed around depending on where you were.
I wasn't there the last 20 years, obviously, for GWAT, but talking to a lot of guys that were there, a lot of their time was like they would stick Marines, they would stick maybe 20 or 30 Marines, let's say a platoon of Marines in this outpost in the middle of nowhere, Afghanistan, at like the weirdest valley. Like, why would you put that? Well, they don't understand that on each side of that valley were two opposing forces. And a lot of times 30 Marines were there for one purpose and one purpose only, to keep the peace between the two tribes.
Yeah, so
That's
that
it.
no one else owned that valley.
That's right. That's right. That's it. It was almost like a ceasefire. Like, guys, we're not here to. I'm sorry. Am I allowed to cuss? G23. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'll just say we weren't. You know, some of the guys.
Absolutely, you are.
Okay,
This
so you're
is
not
an
allowed
adult
to.
chat.
Yeah, we're not here to fuck with either one of you. We're here to make sure that y'all don't fuck with each other. Like, for some reason, there might be a road that might be the only road in and out of this one town, but on each side of that road is the Hatfields and McCoys. Well, we're not there to just take sides with the Hatfields or the McCoys. We're just there to say, hey, for the next 6 months, y'all keep your shit together because this road's important to us. That's basically a lot of what it is these days. It's like, we're the sheriff. Like, quit, just stop.
I'm
Like,
on your side, Outlaw.
what's that?
Just telling Outlaw I'm on his side.
I mean, yeah, I'm definitely. Well, see, here's the problem with Ellis is he's a Hatfield and a McCoy, so he's really screwed in life, you know. But
He's always
no,
on the
that's a lot of it is just keeping it. They talk about peacekeeping, and peacekeeping doesn't mean just being there handing out candy bars and lollipops to kids to be the keep. Peacekeeping a lot of time is, look, there are two opposing forces that for whatever reason hate each other and are willing to die for their tribe's cost. We're there to make sure that that shit doesn't happen, because for some reason there's something in that valley or on that road or in that town that's important to someone in DC who wears a suit and tie, that we're there to make sure that for 6 months that road is quiet because we have to do something, utilize that road or that airfield or that whatever that town is. We're not told the big picture. Like, we don't know what the big picture is. We don't know that, you know, who's making the money off of that poppy field. We just know that we don't want people fighting on that poppy field. Like, that's not where we are. We don't get told why. It's, here's your job, here's your mission. Keep these two forces from fighting, keep the peace. And it's amazing where you have 1,000 people on one side of a valley, 1,000 people on the other side of the valley, but 30 Marines can keep that shit peaceful for 6 months. Because they know that it's not just 30 of us. Because if we have to, we'll call in air support, and then we've got hellfire at that point.
Yeah, and they know that shit, and that's
They
all
know
it takes, right? Is just to go in there and arm wrestle them a few times until they figure out you ain't going to lose an arm wrestling match.
Right.
They're like, all right, we're not going to arm wrestle here.
Right.
I think a lot of that, I don't know, because I've never heard any interviews with like generals or stuff. Some CIA stuff, which kind of gives you a little insight maybe into like some bigger picture stuff, because they've probably been in the room with some bigger picture stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, how many towns can there possibly be in some of these countries? You know, pick a country that we've been in a global war on terror and, you know, let's say 100, I don't know what it is, 30, 100, 10, 30, whatever. You know, there's some amount of towns. So there's got to be, especially with computers and analysts, some awareness of like pretty much, if you think of them as a chessboard or playing a game board, you know, there's somebody who's kind of aware of generally these are 100% good guys. These are probably bad. These are 100%.
Absolutely.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of it is probably, and that's where, like you're saying, like, that people don't get this, but you kind of get this when you're a part of a giant piece, a giant part of a giant mechanism. You understand that every little nut and bolt matters. It doesn't matter if you're a cotter pin or if you're the edge of the blade. Like, it's necessary, and you understand that that's necessary. So if you're a piece on this giant map and it seems inconsequential, it might be a part of a third play for a blah blah blah, and it's keeping somebody at bay, and they know that they can't have this, and it turns into nothing and boring, and or maybe just a meat grinder. But at the same time, like, that's what we sign up, is that, you know, we understand that for the most part it's all, we call it, you know, going in the right direction or whatever. And anyway, that's right. It would be interesting to hear some general like talk about their overall strategy of how they were like, you know, we knew if we kept this area or this region kind of generally, you know, kind of bolstered against them, that they wouldn't try to seep in here, but we allowed them to kind of blow in and out of here because a lot of times when generals look at it, they'll be like, look, if they're going to waste their energy, we're going to make them cost as much as possible. So we made them go to these mountains and just, waste all their energy in something. And, that's where you might get a meat grinder somewhere. But at the same time, that meat grinder made it so that everybody else had it easier, right? Because
Well, sure.
Energy over here. And that's hard to rationalize when you're on the ground or being in the meat grinder. Most people in the meat grinder are down with it, but you know what I mean? Some people who see that go, oh, that's not fair because we're not getting hurt. And that's a tough thing to get a head around, especially when you were there and you were witnessing it all. Well, like I said, I think you need to think of it from the bigger perspective or the potentials from that bigger.
Well, I think the analogy that you used as a chessboard is 100% a great way of looking at it. Let's just take the map of Afghanistan, and let's say that we know that in 3 to 6 months, we're going to have to make a move in XYZ town. But there is 3,000 Taliban in that town. Well, we can go in and carpet bomb that town if we wanted to get rid of the Taliban. Or we know we need this town for something 6 months down the road. So instead of waiting until a week before we need it and just send in a bunch of people and shock and awe them, what we're going to do is we're going to set up something in this town that's 3, 4, 5, 50 clicks away from that town. And we're going to set up a skirmish over there to draw the Taliban to that other town so that now when we go in, there's only 500 Taliban instead of 3,000 because we've drawn 2,500 of them away with this little skirmish we've had at a town that absolutely doesn't mean shit to us. Now, that happens. It's all about chess. It's all about what can we do to make our mission the easiest. And if that means we have to set up a skirmish with another tribe to get them to do something over here to draw some people out of this town to this other town so that we can go in and under darkness and take over the other town with only 500 guys instead of 3,000, then that's what we're going to do because we don't care what happens to the other town. The other town doesn't mean anything to us. We're just going to use that. We're just going to use that as a ploy to get some of these guys out. Now, are we sending our own guys? No. We'll pay another tribe to start something somewhere else so we don't have to use American lives. And that does happen too.
Well, so there's a couple of things there. First off, I wasn't there. So when you're using numbers like 3,000 and 500.
I'm just using numbers.
Okay,
yeah.
Because I got the impression that it's more often like dozens of bad dudes.
It is.
Okay.
But I mean, like, yeah, you're never. I mean, I wasn't in the GWAT, so I don't know. But
okay.
I'm assuming that they're never going to have 3,000 Taliban in one spot. That just wouldn't make operational sense at all.
The idea is to divide them because that
to divide them, yes.
Tactics too, and use their
divide and conquer.
Now, the one thing too is I'm learning is that one of the things we would do if we figure out, whatever situation is, we need this town or we want that pass as ours or something, and we scout it out or figure out from paying people what's the deal in that town, is we figure out, oh, there's 12 dudes in that town and they got paid 2,500 American to be there. We'll just go up there with somebody and go like, hey, you want $3,000 to leave? And they'd be like, okay, and done. And cost us $9,000 to take the town, like that kind of shit. We started figuring out that kind of shit after a while.
So, Gunpowder Beauty says, for fuck's sake, Ghost drops an F-bomb, and bam, I got 5 boxes taped up. Yell at me some more. I might get the rest of this crap packed before morning.
I'm sorry.
She's like, well, not yell at me. I might cry packing. Is making me emotional. So, I think she wants a little more entertainment out of us to get her to, work faster.
Well, I hear you. They're moving again, and I hope everything goes. Man, it really sucks because they're only about 4 hours from me now, and I didn't get a chance to see them when they were living 4 hours from me. Now they're moving far away from me again.
Yep, but this time, they're buying a home, and hopefully they can actually, settle down
settle. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I had speaking of the CIA, you're talking. I recorded a podcast with a couple of people Friday night, and they were in Benghazi, and one was one of the GRS guys that was like in the 13 hours guy, and then another one was a CIA lady that was a targeter in Benghazi. And if you've never heard the stories of what targeters in the CIA do, like they literally, their job is to go into a place and find people that they could recruit into being an asset for the CIA. You've got to find vulnerabilities. You've got to figure out, will they work with us? And if so, like we might have 6 people that we're looking at. Which one has the biggest vulnerability that we could turn them into an asset? And people don't realize that what the CIA, what people see on movies and all that about CIA being these, clandestine spies and all that, a lot of it is asset management. It's we need in town, on hand, on the ground assets that are feeding us intelligence. And you literally, it sounds bad, but you are literally trying to find a person that is vulnerable to being turned and utilizing them to do a job that nobody else really wants. And that is a huge part of the intelligence community, is in-country assets that are not American, because they can move freely within that town or in that country without anyone ever suspecting them. And what the CIA is very, very good at is intelligence. That's the Central Intelligence Agency, but they're very good at asset management and local assets that are the ground floor of the intelligence community in the U.S. Is the vast majority of intel doesn't come from Americans. It comes from locals. And that's crazy to think about.
No, it makes sense though, because you got a bunch. First off, they've been doing it since World War II, so they understand techniques and shit. Mammals are the same, like humanity's the same, and the different cultures. They got all that down. Like they keep track of that, so they know the way to shake hands somewhere to make people happy with you is a way to, not alienate yourself when you meet somebody. So they know, how to talk with people. But again, I'm going to go back to, we're not talking about like we're trying to take over a country and it's like there's Republicans and Democrats and we're saying, hey, be our party instead. It's more like these people were minding their business and every once in a while somebody be creating poppy or whatever they're doing to make money. But all of a sudden there's these Taliban people coming in and raping everybody and killing people and terrorizing it, and basically to take over the thing to kind of cause havoc, right? So the people that were there were more than happy, from what I understand, half the time. It's not like we were twisting anybody's arm or like work against anything. We were just like, hey, we're here to help you get rid of these assholes. Like, we're going to pay you and you tell us what we need so that we're not wasting our time or hurting anybody. So it was like a win, right? So it was, like I say, it was like I'm trying to say like a recipe. Like they knew what to do. And it wasn't like we were hurting anybody. It's like, hey, we're going to make some cookies. Like, tell us what kind of cookies you want.
Yeah, let's take like the Benghazi. People don't realize that before the whole Benghazi attacks happened, by the way, Benghazi was Al-Qaeda. I don't care what anyone else says. And you'll hear about this in the podcast next week. Benghazi attack was Al-Qaeda. And that's what the government doesn't want you to know, is it was Al-Qaeda. But right after Gaddafi went down, there was that revolution in Libya. And so there were a lot of people that were willing to help the U.S. because for the first time, whether or not they were truly, had freedoms or not, for the first time, they didn't have Gaddafi running their lives. So there was a lot of people that were willing to help the U.S. because you still had Al-Qaeda. This was before ISIS, but what became basically ISIS later on. Like these fractions of the people that were the Syrians and all of that, they were in Libya trying to take over Libya. Well, the people were willing to help the Americans out because they're like, look, we finally got rid of that asshole. Let's try to figure out how to save our country. And so, it was ripe for the taking at that point.
So, Ghost, Warsaw had asked earlier if you worked with any like NATO troops, special forces, SAS, or anything like that. And again, if you can't talk about that, I absolutely understand it.
Not how do I put this? Not in a mission, no. Like we did a lot of training like when we went to a couple training sessions and then went to different training stuff that we worked with the French Foreign Legion, which are complete bag shits, like the worst people in the world, like screw them. But we worked with some Australians. We worked with we worked with some different people, not directly as far as like they were part of our mission package, but we used like their intel. We also had to learn how to um, we trained some of them in certain things. They trained us in certain things. Um, yeah, not really. I mean, not ever in a mission. No.
So did they?
We did training with them, but we never did anything with them as far as missions go. Does that make sense?
Yep. But did they teach you the proper way to cook shrimp on a Barbie?
I will say this: the Australians are actually pretty capable. I'll say this: they're not the most skilled fighting force in the world, but I'll tell you the one thing that I do respect about that is they work hard, and you try to teach them certain things, and they will do their absolute best to learn. And that's really all you can ask for, is like they worked hard. And a lot of this is just being able and being having the mentality of working hard. um I go back to the French Foreign Legion just because they were the biggest bunch of shitbags in the world, but that's what they are. Also, they're mercenaries, basically. People don't really know much about the French Foreign Legion. They're mercenaries. They're criminals, basically. A lot of them are criminals, that were given a chance to serve, to have a new life and a new identity. And most of them are obviously not French either. They're just people that are just bad people that are given a chance, that might have a skill set to utilize for certain things. I hated working with them. Australians were pretty cool though. I never got to go to Australia, which I would have. But they worked hard. Now, a lot of stuff that we did training with SEALs and with Rangers, to learn how to train with different branches. And a lot of it was just communication, different terminology. We all did about the same thing, but we had to learn how to communicate and how they did certain things, so that if we ever had to do something with them, it was seamless. Inter branch operations happen all the time now, but back in the 90s, it was kind of secular. The Army had their mission, the Marines had their mission, the Navy had their mission, the Air Force had their mission. And aside from like Team Spirit or Westpac or something like that, there were very few training opportunities to work interbranch with different ones and learn their ways.
Everybody was in competition at that point.
Yeah.
Because it's dwindling funds. For a while, it was like everybody could just have money. Here's the Cold War. And then it's like, Cold War's over. So
Yeah.
Who don't we need anymore? Who are we closing down? So now it's like, hey, we're important and they suck.
Yeah, it was interesting. I as far as ally forces, I know. I mean, we trained with some, but we never did anything with anyone like actual like stuff.
So, did you call any of the Aussies Kiwis? This is like a very important question.
Kiwis are from New Zealand, so no.
I know. That's why.
I will say this, and I get the joke and all that. I will say this, like we joke a lot, but here's the one, and I can't speak for other branches. I'm assuming that the Army and the Navy and all them are the same way, but like I can tell you, like at least my unit, and I can only speak for my unit. Like when it was time to work, it was all seriousness. Like there was no joking. It was you snap into work mode. Now we played hard and all that, and we would have fun with them.
With another unit, you have to be. You're representing your fucking country and your unit.
That's right.
Your people, yeah, like you're in trouble if you don't.
Like, you know, in downtimes we would have fun and we'd drink with them and all of that and stuff like that, and we'd have fun. But when it was work time, like it was like we took our shit very, 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 very seriously. And I like to think that's why we're pretty good. Is like we know when it's time to play and we play hard, but when it's time to work, we work really hard. And it's all about being professional. To a lot of extent, it was, once again, we're mission first, you know, and I'm not saying just the Marine, it's everyone. When you're in that situation, you have to be mission first. You have to be the 3 feet in front of you, and you can't worry about what's going on. Yeah, you joke and you have a good time when you're, like I said, we play hard, but a lot of it was just we would tell stories, and it's. I'll tell you what's interesting is no matter where you're from or what branch you're with, the stories are the same. You know, the details might be a little bit different, but the stories are the same. Like G and I can sit here and have a talk about Army, and Rob and talk about Army versus Marines and all that, but the stories are the same. Why? Because
Ours would be
it's small.
better,
It's
funnier, more interesting. But
yeah, most definitely, most definitely.
So the
But
funny
it's
thing,
all the same. It's all team stuff, and it's all the relationships that you have. That's really what it's all about.
so one of the reasons why I wanted to join the Marine Corps over like any other branch was like my dad and all of his side of the family was all Army guys. That's what, like, that was their entire thing. And I was kind of like the black sheep of the family.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, you know what? The Army's going to die with me. I'm going to go on to the Marine Corps. I'm going to go and be in a different, branch of the military. And there was no way in hell I was going to be a flyboy,
I get you. Most of my family was Navy, and I only had like one uncle or something that was Army. I don't even know if I knew him. So it was mostly all Navy and water stuff. I had no interest in that.
Thing that sucks about it, like, even on your off time, you're still stuck on a damn ship, like stuck in a ship.
There was a time that I wanted to be a Navy pilot. That was after Top Gun came out. I think every kid in the world wanted to be a Navy fighter pilot in 1986. But military was never a thought for me. Like there was a time that I wanted to go to the Naval Academy, but that just never was really going to be a thing. I never thought about the military. Like it was never like that. I didn't grow up like wanting to be in the military. That was never a thing. The military for me was like a last ditch effort to basically get out of the shithole that I was in at the time.
Yeah. That's like,
so like for me, it wasn't like like I said, when I joined, I had no desire to go Navy, Air Force, Army. Like I literally said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go the hardest way possible. And at the time, the perception, whether it was true or not, the perception was that the Marine Corps was the hardest of the five branches.
yep.
So it wasn't like I grew up saying I want to be a Marine or I want to be I didn't want to be in the military at all. I did it.
Yeah. See, like that's what when I chose, it was more of I kind of knew if I stayed where I was and I kept going down the path that I was going, I only had two options. I was going to be dead before I turned 21, or I was probably going to be in prison the rest of my life before I turned 21. That was like pretty much what I was looking at. So that was like, maybe I should go to the military and try something different that
might have been a blessing.
I mean, I was literally shot at 3 times by drive-bys.
Yeah, for me, it was I got bad into drugs and alcohol, and I had friends of mine that died and killed themselves and OD'd, and like it was literally 3 o'clock in the morning. I was at my apartment with my buddy, and we're like, "This is really got to stop. Like, we're not gonna make it." And he was like, "Let's join the military." I was like, "Oh my god, what the hell we do that for?"
What
But
age?
at the time, it was my senior. It was after my senior year. It was the summer between my senior year and my freshman year in college. And so, like, that was like the summer of fun, but it turned into the summer of what the hell are we doing with ourselves? And so I was 18 years old. I joined when I was 19. I went in, that next April. But I was like, man, like that was the option was for me, whether or not it was reality or not. But, at 3 o'clock in the morning, stoned out of your mind, and you're going, what are we going to do with ourselves? Like the military seemed like the best option at the time. It almost seemed like the only option at the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And yeah, because I mean, I was a known gang member I was pretty much a marked person in my town.
No, I wasn't violent. I was just
Oh.
into
And-
drugs and shit.
Oh yeah,
you know?
I did drugs. I sold drugs. I did all that kind of bull crap. I was probably not the greatest of kids.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I woke up one morning and I knew the reality of, pretty much when I got the case kicked because they were trying to charge me as an adult. Here I'm 16 years old. I'm facing 30 counts of assault and battery in the first degree with the intent to grave bodily harm. And they're like, yeah, we're done with you. We're going to, charge you as an adult. And we want you to face 99 years. And so after that got kicked, I realized I'm either going to end up in prison the rest of my life, or I'm probably going to be dead unless I do something like really dramatic and change. And my only thought was, I better go join the service.
Yeah, I mean that's a legit. I mean, like I said, the mindset that I was in at that time was it was a nonstop party, which was fun. Don't get me wrong, I had a blast. But it got to the point where, like, you have to sit there and look at yourself. Like I said, me and my buddy Travis, it's like 3:00 in the morning, and we're just sitting there like, what the hell are we doing? Like, what the hell? And I don't know. For me, and people know my story. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I hated the Marine Corps. Like, it took me the towers falling to actually like look back and be proud of kind of what I did and all that. But for me, it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it taught me discipline. It taught me. This is the one thing that I tell people all the time about the military. Whether you want to or not, you will learn that it's not about you. It's about accomplishing something. It's about team. It's about selfishness, or not being selfish, giving yourself up for a bigger cause or a bigger picture. And ultimately, that's the best thing that ever happened to me in my life was being able to understand that I'm a part of a cog in a big picture and it's not about me. And that was the best thing that ultimately for my personal, it was the discipline that the Marine Corps brought to me. It was being, how I put this, you can't help but to be some sort of a leader when you're in the military, whether or not you're actually in a leadership position. But because the biggest part of leading is you have to learn how to follow before you can lead. And that's what you are when you're an E1, E2, or E3. You follow no matter what, you follow the orders. And then as you grow into maybe an NCO rank or whatever, and you're given some leadership roles, you have to learn how to say, you remember how you were? Now you're going to be making the decisions for these 3 or 4 other guys. And so you're taught leadership skills. It doesn't make you necessarily a leader, but you're taught leadership skills that you can take with you for the rest of your life. You take the aspect, and I guarantee you, Rob and G, I will guarantee you that time management became a thing in your life that maybe it wasn't before you joined the military. Like, you learned the value of time. If it says you got to be there at 5:00 in the morning, you're there at 4:45. Like, and I take that aspect of the rest of my life as I'll never be late for anything ever.
Well,
and I expect nobody. And it's just the pride, I guess, the pride of being that type of thing. It's little things like that. You know what I'm saying?
You can do it. I would say that, like, I knew from old people, and I knew from grandparents, my parents, whatever, telling me about what it was going to be like. So I was aware of what it was going to be like, or at least what I thought it was going to be like, because it got way milder than what I had in my head. But anyway, whatever you think it's going to be, and in, like I say, Civil Air Patrol or something, I might have prepared for it. Going to Civil Air Patrol summer camp is equivalent to a little mini boot camp, so you kind of get.
Yeah, see, I never did that, so that I never was able to do.
But here's the thing: doing all that kind of prep or play, it's almost like cosplay to an extent, because you're getting familiar, but it's to little baby steps. It's like tricycles. But when you go there, being immersed and you don't have nowhere to go home to, and it's
Right.
not 2 weeks
Yeah.
worth, it's 2 months, and then you're enlisted. So fuck you. It's like two months, and then you're off. And like that's just the beginning. Like, it's nothing the same as the experience of it. And then what I was
Yeah.
going to say also is then, so first off, just the experience. You can prepare, you can be ready, but then after experiencing it, right? That's the one thing. But here's the deal: very few people fail out of it. Like there's some elite blah 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 that you have to challenge yourself to get through it. But for the most part,
Yeah.
basic and all the entry level shit, you're going to get through it. It might take you twice. They might yell at you, but
Yeah.
you're getting through it. And what that means is everyone got through it, and you got that
Yeah.
sense of accomplishment and what's the word, like unity or awareness, something, camaraderie, right? And esprit de corps, like pride. You guys have it more than us, but just that same thing. Like everyone's been through it, and then there's something about being able to get and knowing you can get up every day at 4 a.m. to get ready to be at PT at 6 a.m.
Right.
And have all your shit so that while you're getting inspected while you're at PT, you're passing inspection and going
Absolutely.
forward,
Yeah.
right? So once you can do that, and most of the people were 16-year-olds who were like fucking off. We had Ataris or something back in the day. So, not doing anything,
Exactly.
drinking soda or whatever and watching cartoons. Once they figured out they could do that, then it's just, I don't know what to call that. Like you're all at just a different level. And it's not like some lame job. Like you might have a suck job at the moment, but that you're in the fucking military helping the country. And if you just deal with it for a few months, you get out of your shit job. And you also know that whatever awesome job you got, you want to appreciate it because you might not have it in 2 months anymore. So
this is true.
There was just a whole different level. I imagine it's the same. Actually, when I was at AOL, it was nothing the same, but it was kind of the same because we were all felt like we were helping people get online that wouldn't have gone through all the nerd factor to get online. And everybody kind of had that pride. And they did a good job of making us feel happy because they had a ton of money. So they just floated, they gave us pizzas all the time. It's just a fun place to work. And that's about the closest I've had in the real world of like that environment. I don't know what to call it, like that environment that I hate to call it the government. It's a bunch of people who volunteered, because I don't know if it'd been the same in the 60s when it was a conscription army.
Oh, I would imagine there's no way it could have been when you're talking about the draft. Absolutely. Because there are people that were so anti Big Brother that were forced into that situation. They didn't care. But then again, the government at that time didn't care, so yeah, I think there's something about, and this is something that
throw Tim's thing up here. Sorry, go ahead.
Hold on, what's that?
No,
So,
I was just throwing him Tim's.
Tim, I was reading, waiting for kind of a lull.
Yeah, let Ghost finish though. I was just reading the same thing.
Go ahead, Ghost.
Oh no, go ahead. It's your show, man. I feel like G and I are just having a discussion. I'm sorry.
Hey, sometimes it's, as the host, it's fun to just sit back and let your panel
I
run
agree with
everything.
that. This is true. Yes.
So it says some of us just don't realize what it did for us while we were there. After I got out, I realized how mature the military makes you. If you're not 5 minutes early, you're fucking late. If you're late, shit happens.
100%. I'll tell you an interesting story, and I had this discussion with someone a few nights ago. We're talking about people transitioning out from the military, especially now. If you think about it, it's been 20 years, obviously 21 years, but the people that went in and joined the military right after 9/11, if they stayed in for their 20 years, they're getting out right now, and it's crazy to think about. The people that could have gone in right after 9/11 are now retiring from the military after their 20 years of service.
Is that full pension now 20 or is it 25?
I think 20. I think you're in the Marine Corps. I can't speak for anything else. In the Marine Corps, you're eligible to get retirement benefits at 20. I think to get everything is like 24 is where
it's like 80%.
Yeah,
because they wanted to let people still do it.
But still 80%. After 20 years, it's for a lot of guys they got at 20 because 80% is better than nothing. But there's a lot of people that are getting out and transitioning, and there's even a lot of people that are like at that 8-year to 12-year mark that are like, do I want to go 20 or do I want to get out now? And those are big decisions. But the problem is society has told them today that if you don't have a bachelor's degree, you have nothing to offer the workforce. And a lot of people, especially let's say they do their 4 or 5 years in the military and they're thinking, well, now I'm screwed because now I got to go spend another 4 years to get a degree. And now I'll be 26 years old or whatever. And before I have anything to offer the workforce. And I tell people all the time, look, your diploma is your DD 214. You went to schools in the military that are much better preparing you for actual skill sets that a 20 as an employer, I would much rather, if I had a choice of a 22-year-old that spent 4 years in the military or a 22-year-old that spent 4 years in college, I'm taking the military guy, because the diploma that you got in college basically said that you were able to pass classes while partying for 4 years, being preached at by a professor. Now, I'm not degrading a college education by any means. The whole point of this is there are people that are getting out of the military that do not value what they bring to the workforce. They have time management skills. They are cool under pressure. They have real world experiences that a 22-year-old college student will never have in their lives. They've seen things that a 22-year-old college graduate will never see in their lives. So they are able to work as a team. They have a mission first mentality.
Well, you
they
went
have
right past that.
discipline.
You went right past, they work as a team. Like, they understand teamwork. They have accomplishment. Like,
Absolutely.
total understanding of what teamwork can do, and being a part where I don't know if they get that in college. I'd like to think that can be possible, but I just don't.
Maybe if you're an athlete in college, you understand that concept, but the average college student that maybe was a fraternity or sorority person, like, that's the only concept of team or group. I don't know. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I can tell you that veterans or people getting out of the military don't truly understand the value they bring to the workforce as they should. They are trained in a lot of ways to help out, but they're told because they don't have a college degree they'll never succeed. That's not true at all.
Well, let me put it this way. Like, I was trying to think of, like, what else is there? So, like, if there's like a robot team, they come together, they build their robot and it wins some kind of robot battle or something, right? Like, there's other things, but even that is like, okay, so they won the robot battle this year, and that made me think of sports. Like, so, okay, you win the sports team this year, or whatever the thing is, the sports battle this year. You're just one of, next year somebody's gonna win it, and the year before you somebody won it, and there's this like history of the school winning it. So you're just one in a number, and you held up your piece of the rope or whatever that's called. Like, you held up your thing. But often, at least in military stuff, it's like you figured out what it's like to help a village or fail for a village, because it's not all successes. So you get real world examples of teamwork, as opposed to teamwork, rah, rah, rah. Here's another little tick on a big, long series of ticks and talks that, are important to people that go to that school, and it's got tradition and, camaraderie and esprit de corps, but it's not the same as, like, this village now has clean water and they don't have to worry about bad people anymore. Like, that's a whole different level of coming back as a 28-year-old. And like you're saying, like, what you can bring to the workforce, what you can bring to the table, like that accomplishment or that failure. And that's, there's silver there. There's silver lining there.
So, Rob, what do you got to say?
Basically, I think you get used to being able to deal with people that you may not like, or, personally wouldn't deal with, but you can still accomplish the goal without an issue, where that same individual through college may deal with it differently and see it more as a personal competition. You know what I mean? And that's one
transfer the class, or like tell the teacher I want to have a different lab partner.
Something, I don't know. Like, that's honestly one of the things I valued, is just being able to get the job done. Like, whatever it is, like, mentioned, like, transforming back, like, dealing with, like, excuses is just ridiculous. Like, I mean, what's accepted today in modern culture, I still have a hard time dealing with, in a sense, but because, that's one of the things, like, you can do more than you think you can do. And when you don't do stuff, it's because you really don't want to do stuff. You know what I mean? In a lot of cases, or whatever, whether that show up to work on time, whether it's, it could be stretched across the board, but it just seems like people are used to excuses, and excuses don't work. Like, there is no excuse. You know what I mean? So, like, that's what there's no excuses. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's kind of strange. So, with that aspect, if you get handed something to deal with as a job to solve or whatever, I think the person with that aspect where it's just they're just going to get it done with the team they're given, even though they don't like them or whatever the case may be, that they're still going to get done versus a bunch of BS on the other end.
Well, I think you brought up a great point there, that I think one of the biggest misconceptions that military guys get is, oh man, you guys are all like really close and brothers and all that. No, like there's a lot of people in my platoon that I hated. Like, we got along to do what we could, but we didn't hang after hours. Like there's people in the military that you just don't get along with for whatever
you
reason.
Grit your teeth and you salute, or you
That's
get
right.
saluted by and you just move.
But you hey, it's mission first, and you worry about that stuff later.
Being able to put your differences aside.
I mean, here's the thing: getting your differences aside sometimes just comes out to beating each other's asses at night, and you just figure out a way to work with each other.
Well, in the Army, we didn't do anything like that, but we might have get in a fight.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is, I mean, sometimes it is what it is. But like in the civilian world, if you don't like some of the people you work with, you just ask for a transfer. That doesn't happen in the military. Excuse me, sir, I don't like PFC Jones over here. Can I just transfer to another platoon? It was like, I don't know what your problem is, but fix it. And sometimes that meant at 2 o'clock in the morning, we set up a fight club, man. Like that happened. Like we would set up a fight club and say, hey, I don't care what y'all's problem is, but fix it. But tomorrow morning, that shit's over with, guys.
I don't know what Rob did. We in the Army, unless you even in infantry, I don't think they sat around fighting each other. Maybe Rangers fight each other, but I don't think everybody sits around learning hand to hand unless it's like some side hobby of yours. But in basic, at least for regular, like nothing Army, you fucking barely did that giant Q-tip thing once, maybe 2 days or something.
Right.
And it wasn't even like they taught us. It was more like, you know what to do, knock each other over or whatever. And it was just on the ground. It wasn't like anything cool, like a big pit of mud or anything cool. So I don't know about you guys, but you guys, it sounds like definitely do hand to hand all the damn time. And whenever you get in a fight like that, you guys will just take it outside and wail on each other.
It didn't happen all the time.
Well, I think we'd be better if we had that option. We have way too many girls, I think, and people that can't handle that.
It was literally one of those things, and it wasn't necessarily like we set a fight club saying, all right, you two hate each other, it's time to fight. No, it wasn't like that.
It was an ultimatum that everybody was fair. It's like, okay, let's just bring it out and get rid of it.
You guys figure it out. And I tell you what, we had this one time. It sounds funny, but like we were building up for something, and it was stressful, and we all ended up kind of like hating each other because it was hard. It wasn't that we hated each other; we were stressed out, and it was hard. And we were tired, but we started bickering a lot, and people started hating each other and all that. And so like our captain, like we showed up to work one morning, and our captain knew that things were bad. And he was like, look, we're going to get this shit out of it right now. And he had hockey sticks. He went and got a bunch of hockey sticks and like a wiffle ball, like a baseball wiffle ball thing. And we played combat hockey, and there were no rules. We put our freaking flak jackets on and our helmets and all that. Those was our pads. But it was basically, we played hockey for an hour and a half, and we could freaking destroy each other. And he just said, let it all out now. When we get done, it's over. Like when I say we set up a fight club, it's not like we set up a ring and say, all right, you two freakers hate each other. Now fight till you stop talking. But basically the ultimatum is look, I'm tired of this stuff. By Monday morning, when we come back in for PT and inspections and all of that after the weekend, like all of this is over with. Whatever you guys have to do to fix it, like it's not a problem with our platoon, our unit. It's no longer going to be a problem with us. You guys fix it, whatever you have to do. And sometimes it came to just throwing blows and just saying, I hate you, boom, boom, boom. And then I was like, all right, let's go. I'm not saying they told us to fight, but sometimes It just came down to you guys had to figure out whatever it's going to take for y'all to get over this petty bullshit over some girl or whatever. Fix it. And that's what we did. I don't know if they can do that these days. They probably can't do that anymore. But that was back in the day when they could still do that, you know?
We got Gunpowder Beauties where she's still getting boxes packed, so we're keeping her away.
Yeah, there you go.
So, Tim S says, most of the time for me, it took someone pulling me aside and telling me to pull your head out of your ass.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he said O-ring, but I'm just going to...
Well, once again, you're talking about that's where the leadership comes into play is if you're a 19, 20-year-old E2, E3, and you've got a 26-year-old E5, like most of the petty stuff, and I can't speak for the Army, I'm sure Robin and G can tell you, but in the Marines, like you didn't want the staff NCOs or especially your OIC to find out about the petty bullshit. Like if they had to get involved, it was not going to be pretty for any of them. So most of it was handled at the NCO level. And you're talking about 26-year-old sergeants, 24-year-old sergeants, or 23-year-old corporals that took charge of that platoon and said, look, guys, like we're all on the same freaking team. Like you don't have to like each other. But when we come to work, once again, it comes down to the pride thing and then being professional. What you guys do when you're not on the clock is your business. But if you let that stuff bleed over into work, we have a problem and we're going to fix it one way or the other. And a lot of it was, hey, you were told to do a lot of unpleasant things like, you know, hey, you messed up. And instead of, you know, we call it NJP, non-judicial punishment. A lot of NJP was, hey, you're going to go clean the toilets for the next week, or you're going to have to do this. And hopefully you learn your lesson not to do that again. But a lot of it was just, look, guys, we don't care what you do after hours. As long as you're not breaking the law, do what you want to do. But if you don't like each other, that shit ends when you put the uniform on and you step through the gate, the door Monday morning.
It's those established rules, and it's some of it's tradition, some of it's
yeah.
You know, we all have our own little version of it. Like boats,
sure.
Navy is all weird, but you know, Air Force is fake because it's all new. It was all invented in the last 60 years or whatever. Most of our stuff is super old from the olden days, right? Either from old troops from Europe that were marching around, or boats that were boating around. And then, you know, whatever remembrances of that. Actually, it's probably hybrids of the different countries' traditions, right? Because we're the hybrid.
Oh,
country.
yeah.
But whatever. So it's all these like established things. And what are those things? How to deal with all this stuff. So most of the time, no matter what the circumstances were, the main thing is I think we had a hierarchy. We had like an actual rule for pretty much everything, like where to put stuff, how to wear it, you know, which way to deal with this and that. So, you know, some of it was, you know, rough around the edges maybe, but at the same time, that's why I think a lot of people like the militaries, because most of it was all cut and dry. Like you knew where your boundaries were, you know what you could do, and as long as you weren't like a completely square peg in a round hole, you could deal with it. And you knew that it wasn't like you're getting treated unfairly, right? Like, because everybody's getting treated the exact same freaking way, and if there was something, there was a procedure for getting out of it. It was like, I think that part of it was way more fair, even though if it wasn't fair at the time, you knew that it was equally unfair all around. If that makes sense, right? Like you knew that if everybody was getting screwed, or if you're getting screwed, most of the time everybody's getting screwed. And if it wasn't, like it would only last for a while. Like what, it wasn't like, I don't know, it was kind of a weird environment, I guess. And that, I'm saying, making it clear that.
So
I think that element of it is you don't get that in real life because it's just, you know, so many unknowns in real life.
So I got a question for you guys. You come back from a leave. Maybe you're a little hungover because you guys were out partying a little too much, and you show up and you've got a scuffed boot and your flag's upside down. How much shit are you going to get in trouble for?
First of all, the flag will never be upside down.
Yeah,
like
that
ain't gonna happen. I can't speak for those guys. We had inspections once a week when we were in garrison. And we had, like, I had a set of camis and a set of boots that I never wore except for inspection. So I never had to worry about not having a scuff on a boot or having camis that weren't perfectly pressed. Like we had inspection camis, we had inspection boots, and we wore them once a week. Usually it was Friday morning, and that was just more of a ceremonial thing, just a pride. Hey, but like I can't speak for anyone else, but like you didn't see people showing up to an inspection looking like a shitbag. It didn't. If it did happen, it only happened once in your career, because that was not a guarantee. It wasn't pleasant. I did that one time in school. Not that I came in drunk or hungover. I didn't press out my camis as well as I probably should have, and I buffed my boots. This is before I learned a thing about having inspection camis and inspection boots. I just showed up and I passed, but I got pulled out by a sergeant in school, and I was put on, put it this way, for 2 straight weekends. Instead of having liberty, I was on guard duty for 2 weeks. And that's not fun when you're walking around being on guard duty for 2 weeks while your buddies are out going out and getting hammered and having fun on the weekends, and I'm stuck on guard duty. But when you get out into the fleet and all that, like, I can't speak for anyone else, but that never happened. Like by then you learned that the pride and how you're supposed to do things, like you never saw anyone with scuffed boots or unpressed camis. Like I said, we had inspection camis and inspection boots. We were once a week, but we did that because we knew that you just didn't show up being unprepared. That's just how it was with us. I can't speak for anybody else, but at least with us, it never happened.
I don't think anybody would let you show up like that, because that's.
Oh yeah, because you're getting inspected before you leave the barracks, twice before you even show up to
your friends, in other words, who are also going to get in trouble if they let you go out like that. So they're gonna be
like your roommate's not going to let you leave. Yeah, you're not. I'm not letting you leave like that, man. Exactly.
And if you somehow got in late because you were fucking off, then you would have got in trouble. That was the whole corrective measures or whatever, corrective actions.
Yeah,
for me, it was different. The only time I ever did anything would have been in school, because I was reserve, so we didn't have to worry about shit like that. Like I was, there was no inspections and shit like that. I mean, maybe once in a year or something. Like we'd have them on a regular basis. But I mean, in school, they happen all the damn time. So if you're in school for 3 months, they're fucking with you the whole time, depending on what level of school and what kind of school it is, to some level. And then, that just kind of depends on the person. I was going to say, half the time, if you were friends with the, let's say, sergeant who was boss of you for whatever amount of time you were in school, and you came in like that, they'd be like, what the fuck, man? Get the fuck your shit straight and get upstairs. And then the other time you'd meet some other sergeant and they'd be like, you're fucked. Like, you're fucked for the next 6 months. It just kind of depends on if they're their mood and if they're a dick or not, if they're your people or if somebody else's. Like you do that in front of, let's say I don't know, think of however the hierarchy might be. Let's say somebody above you hates somebody in the other building that's near you, and one of their sergeants finds you. Then boom, now I can fuck with them through you. You're fucked, because now you're double fucked. That guy found you and you're fucked. Plus your guy's going to be like, you're fucked, you fucking fuck. So,
well, and that's true, because like we were told, like, in our platoon and then in our company, but like, different companies within our battalion, like there was always like some kind of competition between the different companies, right? And so like that's one of the things we were told, like, look, if you're going to do something wrong, get caught by one of us. Like, don't let yourself get caught by another company commander or a first sergeant from another company, because if that happened, now it's a company thing, and it's not just your platoon that's going to get tortured, or you're going to get tortured in front of only your platoon. Now the entire company's going to get tortured. And so it's like, don't get caught by someone outside the circle. If you get caught doing something outside the circle, you're royally fucked at that point. Yeah, you better just, it's not going to be fun for you. Exactly.
And that can last for a while. Like, that's something that you can beat the fuck up that like forever. They're like,
one
guy was
the whole time.
1934. Oh, yeah. Like, oh fuck, I'm that guy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we had. But
all that being said, I mean, this didn't happen very often for us at all. That wasn't really an Army thing. That was maybe more of a Marines thing, or like an old fashioned thing. Like, it was more of like, I don't know, let's say you parked in somebody's parking space kind of shit and they had a grudge against you, and the next time they could see you fucking off, then they could be like, now I can go get him. You know, is that kind of bullshit?
Oh, a lot of it came down to and here's the thing, like, we're not allowed to put our hands in our pockets in the Marine Corps, period. You don't put your hands in your pockets at all, ever. So you might be at lunch somewhere or at the PX or something. I should say in uniform and in your camis, you're not allowed to have your hands in your pockets at all. And let's say you're in the PX and you're buying something and you're standing in line with your hand in your pocket, and some staff sergeant or a gunny from another platoon catches you and he knows you and he knows who you're with, he'd be like, Corporal Miller, like, how you doing, gunny? Just said, so you're gonna stand there? That's how you guys act right now? You guys are just shit bags. You're gonna sit around and have your hands in your pockets in line? Well, you don't think that guy can't wait to call my gunny and tell me, hey, Corporal Miller had his hands in his pocket at the PX? It's something as simple as that. But once again, you got caught by someone who you're in competition with or whatever. Like, that's the worst thing that can happen, is like
and
someone else seeing you.
Friends. If it
Oh,
was
absolutely. It was like fucking
got
with
one
you.
of those dudes.
Hell yeah, that's exactly the way it was. They were friends, but they wanted to fuck with us big time. Absolutely.
And now you might get a beer at the end of training. Remember that time whenever, like, you
Oh yeah,
here's a beer because of that. Like,
here's a beer. Like, hey, we fucked you over, but here's a beer. It's all over with now. You've done what you got to do. But that when you're getting PT'd or you're getting in the pit, it ain't fun. Like, you don't know this is almost a joke.
Oh, that's
between the gunnies.
That's a trip, yeah. Because at the time, this is easy to say when I'm fucking 50 or whatever. At the time, I didn't know any of this shit. I didn't have no hindsight. Like, yeah, I didn't know what the fuck. So you're constantly worried you're gonna get yelled at for something, and you have no idea that nobody gives a shit. They're worried about.
Oh yeah,
you're just gonna yell at them about tonight or whatever.
So, Gunpowder says y'all's stories are starting to sound like what Little Miss needs. She's she asked, so how old can you ship kids off to military school? I think they can start as like in middle school.
No. You got to watch Taps. They can be little kids going to military school.
This is true.
Yeah,
well, that's Taps. One of the. I hadn't seen that movie forever. I didn't go back and watch that thing. I
think it holds up. I'm gonna watch it again.
Well, no, but I believe you can, with your parents' permission, go into basic at 16. When you graduate, you can head out.
Yeah, I had to get a bunch of.
Yeah,
I went into 16.
There actually was a kid here in town who was. It was the summer between his junior and senior year in high school. He actually went to boot camp and then got done with boot camp.
It's delayed entry, it's called.
And then came back, went his senior year in high school. And like 2 days after he graduated from high school, he went to school at that point, but he'd already done boot camp. He went to boot camp before his senior year in high school. I don't know if that was like I don't know what that was, but he did it.
Oh, delayed entry, and you can do it in every branch, and especially if you've been in Civil Air Patrol and shit ahead of time, because then you get all the figure it all out. But I went in. I was enlisted in sophomore year. Then I went to basic between sophomore and junior. Was in during junior. Went to school between junior and senior. So by the time I graduated high school, I had been in the Army for 2.5 years, and I went in as a PFC. But and then I was in a reserve, so I was going to reserve. I would leave school and go to reserve, and for me, there was like some tasks that needed to be done. One of them was drive a deuce and a half all the fuck around, and everybody else was like, I don't want to take off work because they're regular people going to work. Like, I don't want to take off work and do that, and I'd be like, take off high school and get paid to go drive around an Army deuce and a half by myself.
Like, hell yeah, I'm in.
Yes. Like, so here's the story. I busted a deuce and a half.
Oh no, how'd that go for you?
Here's how it went. I drive it back in, and my guys are like, go fucking sit down. Like, blah, 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 done, 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 done. And I can talk about it 25 years later, but you know what I'm saying?
Not at the time, though, no.
No, fuck, dude. I thought I was done for. I mean, they held it over me for a while, but I mean, in reality, I would have been paying that off the rest of my life, like some amount of money out of my paycheck. I mean, if they really wanted to do that way. But it was just probably a matter of somebody didn't put oil in it, and it could have been like, oh, we're going to leave this young kid take the credit. But I didn't know to check the oil or whatever, blah, blah, blah. when I was a little kid. I was just checking it out and being happy to go get paid to drive around. But anyway, so yeah, delayed entry is what it's called. And
Okay.
it's awesome because you get paid. If you go in the reserve, I'm sure if you go, well, I'm sure it's only in the reserve. How could you do it in anything else? So you get paid though to go to drills while you're in school. It's awesome.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So Gunpowder said this was earlier. She goes, "Holy crap, Ghost! That's an amazing idea. I'm gonna use that on the big kids.
What's
Let-
that?
Let them
Fight Club?
fight.
Fight Club?
Yep, let them fight. Not me. My daughter scares the hell out of me. She's psychotic.
She gets that from her mama.
Absolutely. So
No, like I said, it was not one of those where we set up a fight club in a sense of like, hey. Now there were times that we had, we did have boxing gloves, and sometimes we put boxing gloves on, and that was just how we got our shit done. But like I said, it really wasn't a thing. It was just, our leadership, our NCOs, and I'm sure it's the same way in the Army and every branch, but the NCOs run the military, at least in the Marine Corps.
Oh, yeah.
The NCOs would sit there and say, look, I don't give a shit what y'all's problems are, but by Monday morning, it's fixed.
And this is just the old sergeants, the people that have a shit ton of stripes on their arms. So people that never became officers, but
Right.
Went in as single stripes, worked their way up to regular sergeants, and then became granddaddy sergeants. And they're the ones that do everything. The middle-aged sergeants, the ones with a bunch of stripes, but not all of them, are the ones he's talking about. And then officers are the ones sitting in some office usually, come out and say stuff like blah blah blah, and then they go back in an office somewhere. So you really
Yeah.
never see them unless you have some.
The Marine Corps is run by the E4s, E5s, and E6s. That's where the leadership is.
And the officers will come to them and go, hey,
Absolutely, they
do
will.
This. Can we? Like,
Yeah.
is that possible? Because they don't fucking know. And then
Yeah,
some old guy will
you're
be
talking
like, no,
about
that's not possible. You dumbass.
Yeah, you're
It's gonna
talking about a
take us 3 weeks to do
captain. Yeah, a captain that's 26 years old will go to a 30-year-old staff sergeant and say, "Can we do this?" Yeah, you can do that, sir. Not a problem. We can make that happen or whatever. Matter of fact, before I got out, we had a second lieutenant come in a butter bar, and my captain calls me into his office and he was like, "This is Lieutenant." We call him Lieutenant Dan because he looked like Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump. And we call him Lieutenant Dan. But anyways, he goes, "This is Lieutenant so-and-so." I remember his last name, honestly, because we all call him Lieutenant Dan. He's like, "Lieutenant, this is Corporal Miller." I was an E4. This is Corporal Miller. He's like, for the next week or two, you're going to be shadowing him. Follow him, listen to him, learn from him. They sent an officer to an E4 and said, shadow him for the next 2 weeks and learn your job. But like the NCOs, E4s, E5s, E6s, like, they run the Marine Corps. Like without the E5s, especially the sergeants, the E5s, they run the Marine Corps. Like without the E5s, nothing would get done hardly ever.
Well, let's say that they are the ones that
they make shit happen.
They don't make the decisions.
They make it happen. They make everything happen. Yeah.
So
they make it possible for it to happen. Like the dumbasses will decide what to do, and then somebody will blah blah blah, and they'll kind of be like, all right, and then it'll get tasked to them, and they make it happen. But it's not like they make a decision and say, this is the direction we're going, or nobody asks them, like, what direction should we go?
Yeah.
Because they probably do something really angry and mean.
Thank you, Gunpowder Beauty, for taking care of the trolls that were in the chat.
Mama Bear is going to take care of that shit.
Yeah, we had
I wonder
a
there's
sex
no
spot
rhyme or
in there.
reason to those things. It took all. That was the only one that happened, right?
Yeah, so far.
But that's so weird that it happened hours into your chat, and then other
I know.
people it'll happen constantly, and other people it won't happen ever, right? Weird. Like I wonder what the trigger is.
So Rob, you want to plug anything before you get out of here? All right.
That's an open-ended question.
Oh, maybe he left and just left it on. A lot of
Yeah.
people like the
He may not realize he's muted.
discussion.
I'm muted. Sorry. Say, just thanks for the invite. Obviously, everybody knows Rich White's show probably, but if not, go check that out or when he does his. So, the one that this hostilely took over, I guess. But other than that, thanks for having me. Have a great night, everybody. It's getting late here on the East Coast, pushing 1 a.m. So,
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that late. I got to go to bed here in a minute, anyways.
Yeah.
Work in the morning.
Well, thanks for coming and hanging out. And if you guys haven't checked out R&L Displays, go check them out. You can use code G23 for 15% off any order. It is American made, and
I can personally vouch for him. I've got one. And I love it.
veteran owned. So it is the businesses we say we want to support. So let's put our money where our mouth's at, you know. And thanks for hanging out. And we can. What was that, Rob? Before you?
I was just saying thanks. Thank you for speaking to me. So, yeah, thanks a lot.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Good night, everybody out there.
Yep. Later,
Be good,
Rob.
Rob. Be good, man.
Ghost, do you have anything you want to plug before we close this down? We can always kick it in the after chat if we want.
No, I don't have any. This Thursday, yeah. So there's a couple things actually. So Wednesday, over on Clover's channel, we're going to be doing the Ghost and Clover, and we've got a pretty big announcement coming. So you might want to check that out. I think it's 7 Central, 8 Eastern, whatever that would be Eastern. I think it's 8 Eastern, 7 Central over on Clover's channel.
Clover
We'll
has
have
a
a big-
channel.
Supposedly, he told me he does, so I guess we'll find out. But we're going to be over on his doing a Ghost and Clover. We have a pretty big announcement coming. Be kind of a cool thing we're going to be doing. But Thursday, the latest episode of the Jarhead podcast will be coming out, and like I said, I've got Boone Benton. You guys ever watched 13 Hours and you saw Boone? Well, Boone is going to be on the Jarhead podcast, and a woman named Sarah Adams, who was a CIA operative in Benghazi, who was there as a CIA operative in Benghazi. They both were on the podcast, and they've got a book coming out called Know Thy Enemy. And this book is amazing. So we're going to talk about this stuff about Benghazi, the truth about Benghazi. And so that podcast, the Jarhead podcast, will be coming out Thursday. I'll have the video side on YouTube and then all over the podcast world on Thursday as well. But that'll come out Thursday. So that's really the thing I got to plug is we're looking out for that. And then Clover's got a thing Wednesday we're going to be doing.
All I've got to say
Thanks for
is,
having me. I had a fun, man. And I enjoyed talking some of this stuff. It was really fun.
well, thanks again for showing up. And I just want to say this really quick. Ghost is not suicidal and anything, and he has no dirt on any of the Clintons or anything like that. So, just remember how lovely he is.
I am not suicidal, that's for sure. I am from Arkansas. So we learned, I'm not from Arkansas. I've lived in Arkansas now for 20 years. And the first rule is kind of like Fight Club. Speaking of Fight Club, the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. The first rule of being an Arkansan is you don't talk about the Clintons. Because you might disappear. So
yeah. So thanks again for joining. It's been a great pleasure having you on, and you're definitely always welcome. G-Webs, you have anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
No, thanks for the link and for hosting. Like Ghost said, it's a great conversation.
Hell yeah, this was fun. Actually, I didn't think we were going to go this long. But, the conversation was flowing, and damn, almost 4 hours. So have a great night, everyone. I'm going to play an outro and then close this thing down.